election results. Soon after the announcement, officials throughout Milwaukee began lobbying MLB to host the All-Star Game in Milwaukee. This year's All-Star Game is set to honor Hank Aaron, who fittingly began and ended his career playing baseball in Wisconsin. The Milwaukee Brewers lost their season-opening series to the Minnesota Twins, winning on opening day and losing games 2 and 3 on Saturday and Sunday. The crew is on the road this week with a series against the Chicago Cubs beginning tonight and later this week against the St. Louis Cardinals. You're listening to Devil Radio 92.7 FM and WTTN 1580 AM.
Warning, you are about to listen to the greatest radio show ever. And due to contractual obligations and to shield our airwaves corporate licensees from any semblance of liability, responsibility, and gullibility, we must tell you the views represented on this show are not necessarily those of this station or its management. This radio show contains differing points of view on current political topics, and due to the nature of its contents, it should be heard by everyone. Thank you for listening.
3, 2, 1.
Now live from the heart of liberal Wisconsin, where the political party is just beginning, welcome to the Devil's Advocate Show. Best friends proving it's never personal, only politics.
Please allow me to introduce myself.
Now here are your hosts, Dom and Crute.
Welcome to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. Dominic, it is a Championship Monday edition, and you're all winners just for tuning in.
Everybody gets a participation trophy. Crudy, happy Monday. Fancy Brian back on the board. Good to see you, my friend, our fair audience. Welcome back. It's been a great weekend, and we have a big week ahead of us.
Yeah, but only one team gets to cut down the nets. Baylor Gonzaga.
One team leaves tonight. Yeah, NCAA championship, man.
And I know
who you picking.
You know, the Badgers lost to Baylor. But that Gonzaga win the other night, that UCLA game, perhaps the greatest college basketball game in my lifetime.
That's a bold statement.
It was the best game I've seen. I mean, it was great. It was fun. So I'm going to go for the Zags.
To what? To avenge your Badger loss, crew?
No, if that were the case, I would say I would want Baylor to win, because by extension, the Badgers could have been the second best team in the nation. Yeah. They played Baylor a lot tougher than most of the opponents subsequent.
Yeah.
I mean, the Badgers really weren't turning ready. They had one nice game. They sent Roy Williams, and I know we don't normally do sports talk much, but they sent Roy Williams, the coach of the University of North Carolina, into retirement, baby. But Baylor's a hell of a team. Those guards are incredible, and I'm looking forward to a big game. I'm excited.
I haven't paid a whole lot of attention, but championship game tonight we'll be watching.
Now, Dominic, let's suppose the game came to a conclusion and we watch the game, and regardless of who you want to see win, let's say it's Gonzaga for conversation, and you and I watch that game, and they added up the points and the ball goes through the hoop a certain number of times, and then tomorrow, let's say the Baylor fans all came and said, no, Baylor really won.
Yeah.
You've added up the points wrong. We feel confident that Baylor won. I mean, isn't that what's going on right now in this nation, Dom? Aren't we still living the big lie, the Donald Trump big lie? And that, of course, is I didn't lose the election. It was fraud. It was stolen. It was rigged. It was taken from me. All those absentee voter ballots harvested from dead people's mailboxes. And they, of course, have turned high voter turnout into high fraud, high crimes, and misdemeanors, perhaps.
It's actually not a terrible analogy, Crudy, because, the level of gaslighting that must occur should Baylor lose that game. And the next day, Baylor fans come out and say, no, we really won. We want to run the tape again and count them all again. And, of course, that NCAA doesn't let them because they don't have standing, or we already know the rules of the game, and the game was played as the game was played. It's been called time to move on, time to prep for the next year. Well, that's the same level of gaslighting that has been going on with the political big lie from Donald Trump, supported by many in the Republican hierarchy, let's call it, right? And now the lie continues to evolve. Hell, it continues to spread like a cancer into all other aspects of our lives.
Buddy, don't seem so surprised. My analogies, unlike yours,
Yeah.
rock solid. Nothing but excellent analogies. Mostly.
Mostly. 60% of the time, you're right every time.
So let's talk about the big lie. It's still going on, Dom. You brought to my attention a Reuters poll, and I don't like doing polls on a Monday, so why don't you lead with the polling?
I'll jump on there, Crudy. Reuters reporting half of Republicans believe false accounts of deadly U.S. Capitol riot, according to a Reuters Ipsos poll. Since the deadly January 6th insurrection at the Capitol, former President Donald Trump and his Republican allies have pushed false and misleading accounts to downplay the event that left 5 dead and scores of others wounded. We know this. His supporters appear to have listened. 3 months after a mob of Trump supporters stormed the Capitol to try and overturn his November election loss, about half of Republicans believe the siege was largely a nonviolent protest or the handiwork of left-wing activists trying to make Trump look bad, a new Reuters Ipsos poll has found. Not only that, Crudy, 6 in 10 Republicans also believe the false claim put up by Trump that November's presidential election was stolen from him due to widespread voter fraud. And the same proportion of Republicans, again, 6 in 10, think he should run again in 2024, the March 31st poll showed. So 50% think that the riot at the Capitol was somehow, the work of either it wasn't as bad as as we saw it to be, or the work of Antifa. And 60% think that the election was stolen from Trump and that Trump should run again. One other one here, Crudy, as well. According to the poll, Trump remains the most popular figure within the party, with 8 in 10 Republicans continuing to hold a favorable impression of him.
8 in 10. That's a big majority.
Wow.
I mean, predicated on that, he should run for president again in 2024, Dom. And he'll still be airing the grievances about the last stolen election, I suspect. Perhaps from a jail cell, but that's to be seen. But here's my thought. I mean, this is really moved beyond the point of ridiculous. These Republicans, only one of two things can be true. One, they believe it. And as far as the rank and file go, that might be the case. They've been hearing the Ron Johnsons of the world. Oh, the Black Lives Matter protesters, provocateurs, they were over on Nancy Pelosi's side.
Right.
The whole event wasn't that big. It wasn't that bad. Just some friendly patriots coming over to call upon their government. So I can understand why perhaps if you're watching Fox News or listen to Righty Whitey Talk Radio, that you have been misinformed. You've been told what you want to hear. And you might believe that because you so desperately want to hear it. Because how could all your adoration for this former president, let's just call him that, he is the former president. Can we agree that Joe Biden's the president, or don't you believe that?
I'm not clear that they, before every conversation should start, we should qualify these things. This was a free and fair election, and Joe Biden is the president. Those should be some qualifying questions prior to engaging in any sort of political conversation.
Well, you'd like to think that the sky is blue in my world and yours, and you're not a Venetian lizard, as I argued to my sociology major professor in college. I struggled mightily because my reality has to be your reality. We have to have some common set of facts. And here's the problem. This big lie. Well, I get that the sheeple, the Republicans, they could be misinformed. Maybe the information's not getting through to them. But someone's still telling the big lie. And they're passing legislation. And they're jamming stuff down your throats. And hell, when people react to the legislation, the new Jim Crow, because, of course, in Georgia and other states, like 47 states now have propositions to, do what the best they can to curtail democracy, make it harder for you to vote. So they tell the big lie. There's been no real consequence. I mean, the only consequence to the big lie was an insurrection and death at the U.S. Capitol and mayhem. but no real consequence, not to those perpetrating the big lie.
Yeah, not to
Trump,
those laying
not
that
to Ron
foundation.
Johnson, not to Ted Cruz, not to Josh Hawley. And we've got to figure by now, they know that they're lying down because Joe Biden is the president and the electoral college count went through. And those rigged votes, they weren't rigged. You just didn't like the outcome. You didn't like the fact that your guy lost. I mean, this is the biggest crying of wolf, victimhood, snowflake, pansy ass reaction to a lost election in the history of mankind. But they're still telling the lies down. Georgia, Brian Kemp. Let's play some of the sound. Here on Saturday, of course, they've moved the Major League Baseball All-Star Game in reaction to the Jim Crow laws being jammed through in Georgia. And Kemp signed them. And here's what Kemp said, the governor thereof, great state of Georgia, cut 10.
Major League Baseball caved to fear and lies from liberal activists. They ignored the facts of our new election integrity law, and they ignored the consequences of their decision on our local community.
So don't believe what's actually in the bill. They're lying about what's in the bill. Let me tell you the real stuff that's in the bill, although, of course, Brian Kemp is lying.
The integrity bill? I mean, what problems do these bills address? Do they fix?
The problem of black voters turning out and voting for Democrats.
Yes, exactly.
More from Kemp. Cut 11, if you would.
In the middle of a pandemic, Major League Baseball put the wishes of Stacey Abrams and Joe Biden ahead of the economic well-being of hardworking Georgians who were counting on the All-Star Game for a paycheck.
Lie number 2, Stacey Abrams specifically was against the boycott. Said she appreciated Major League Baseball's stand, but she was opposed to boycotts. Because she also lives in Georgia. And many of the working people, you make a good point. If nothing else, when you're not lying, Brian Kemp, it is the working people that will suffer, but they're suffering for your malfeasance, Brian Kemp. You signed the bill. Republican lawmakers passed this Jim Crow crap, and you're still lying about it. And that bothers me quite a bit, Tom.
Justifiably so. Let's squeeze one more in here, Brian, if you would. The cancel culture, of course, cut 12.
It means cancel culture and partisan activists are coming for your business. They're coming for your game or event in your hometown. And they're coming to cancel everything from sports to how you make a living.
Now, let's not forget that this has been focus group, these terms. I mean, we heard this sound released last week, right, of the Koch brothers network and how they analyzed everything and all the things. AOC, cancel culture, what they, right? Political violence. They're trying to throw everything at the wall to make themselves seem like they're honest players, and they most certainly are not.
And you know who else wants to cancel? Donald Trump wants to cancel Coca-Cola. He lives on Diet Coke. Right. It's a Championship Monday edition of the Devil's Advocates. We'll be right back.
I am not a role model.
No, I don't take responsibility at all.
I'm not paid to be a role model.
Pay for play. It's illegal. I mean, it's illegal.
When people in your own party say they won't vote for you or support you, that's a dead giveaway.
When you're trying to stay safe, you want the best protection possible. And when it comes to PPE, that means Lutema. Made in the USA with the highest quality materials, Lutema has mask sizes for all. Lutema masks pass ASTM Level 3 and NIOSH efficiency standards and come in a wide variety of colors and types, including M95i. Get your American-made face mask at Lutema.com. That's Lutema.com. And get 40% off your first purchase single item with promo code RADIO at Lutema.com.
The people voted to give Democrats a mandate for bold action. From COVID relief to climate change and racial injustice, the problems we're facing are large, and we need bold solutions. We can't afford more obstruction from Senator Ron Johnson and the Republicans. Text ACT to 668-366 to join Move On. Message and data rates may apply. MoveOn.org political action paid for and is responsible for the content of this advertising. Poll.moveon.org, not authorized by any candidate or candidates committee.
These are the sounds of a dinner that almost didn't happen. A dinner now served, thanks to people like you. Due to COVID-19, 17 million more Americans may face hunger. Feeding America is helping our neighbors in need. And if you're able, you can too. Donations are being accepted at feedingamerica.org/coronavirus. Brought to you by the Ad Council and Feeding America, 200 food banks strong.
Josh Call, the candidate for Wisconsin Attorney General.
Do you think voter ID had a suppressive effect, not on 100 voters, but on thousands of voters and perhaps tipped the election to Donald Trump?
This is an issue that came up at our trial. And first of all, I should thank you guys because we actually introduced into evidence the recording of you interviewing Dale Schultz, who was talking about the passage of the voter ID law. That was one of our pieces of evidence.
I would have gotten away with it too if it wasn't for those meddling devil's advocates. The Devil's Advocates. Never personal, only politics.
And we are back. Thank you for listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show. You can always join us toll free, talk or text at 844-967-2789.
So since effectively election night, Donald Trump's been telling the big lie. I won the election. You know, once they count the votes, you know, the votes I want them to count, not the ones in Dane County or Milwaukee County, and not the ones in Pennsylvania or Georgia, not in Fulton County. But if you count the correct votes, and you just go find 11,780 more of them, then I'm going to be the reelected president. And of course, they didn't find those votes. Could find some indictments against the former president coming out of Georgia, but they didn't find the 11,780 votes he sought. And Joe Biden, you know, over the protestations of up to 100,000 Capitol insurrectionists on January 6th, well, Joe Biden was effectively, you know, the victor of the Electoral College. That's what they were trying to stop that day. And ever since the Capitol insurrection, we've had Republicans effectively lying about both the insurrection and the need for new restrictive voting laws that they call, you know, great voting laws, the best ever voting laws.
Integrity. It's all about, you know, election integrity to the Republicans. That's what they'll lay out there. That's what they'll tell you, you know, very typical of putting a nice word onto a very sinister idea. As Crudy mentioned, what is the problem? Well, the problem is there's a great turnout. I mean, this was a very watched election. The reporting I've seen from those who are in charge of this most secure election we've ever had. I mean, everyone was watching this election. We knew how this was going to go. Donald Trump was projecting a year ago. Oh, you know, hell, we can't have all these mail-in ballots. Well, because of the pandemic and his lack of action, lots of people did absentee ballots. Well, that, you know, they don't want people to engage.
Including Donald J. Trump.
Oh, yeah, but he voted for himself, so that's an okay vote.
In Florida, where, you know, they've got the mail figured out, but nowhere else.
Right.
A couple more from Brian Kemp, the governor of Georgia, trying to defend and, of course, recast this big lie with more new big lies. Here he is telling the people on Saturday, cut 13, Brian.
Secure, accessible, fair elections are worth the threats. They are worth the boycotts as well as the lawsuits.
Whatever it takes.
Whatever.
To get the outcomes that we see.
As opposed to what happened in your state in the last election, Kemp. I mean, that's the follow-up question. You know, why is this necessary? What was not secure about the last election, Governor?
All the black people voting, Dom. Let's not forget, if it wasn't for the voting purge efforts of the Secretary of State, Brian Kemp wouldn't be the governor of the state of Georgia. Stacey Abrams would be. And he's on the ballot again next year. He's up for re-election. So without some voter suppression, I think he strongly suspects he will no longer be the governor of the great state of Georgia. So this big lie that he continues to tell in the legislation he signs, let's not forget it's for his own ass saving. One more. He's not afraid of the left. Cut 14, Brian Kemp.
Major League Baseball, Coca-Cola, and Delta may be scared of Stacey Abrams, Joe Biden, and the left, but I am not.
But I am not. You can't tax the left. You can't tax corporations, but you can cancel them, right? Because if they don't like what you're doing as a government, then you, the government? are going to punish Major League Baseball, is my understanding. Ted Cruz leading the charge to take away the Major League Baseball antitrust exemption. Because, of course, these 32 teams, I think it's 32, they can't operate in the way they do. And we talked about, Bud Selig explained the economics of baseball. You got to have some collusion going on. That's got to be permitted because you got to be able to set caps in all markets across the nation, or it's an uncompetitive marketplace. And the Yankees buy all the players every year. And they still do, but at least you give some of the smaller market teams a fighting chance. But that's the truth. That's the reality of the economics. Punishing Major League Baseball, that's what you got to do because they deserve canceling because they're trying to cancel you.
I thought the Republicans were against the cancel culture, right? And
it's very confusing. They're against taxes for corporations and the First Amendment for corporations. We'll talk about that. The Justice Clarence Thomas, he's against corporate free speech. It's all very confusing, and it all stems from the same lie down.
Well, it all depends on what the corporations are saying and who they are supporting. We saw this last week. I mean, certainly right now it might be this effort to take away the antitrust of the ability for baseball to do what they do. But last week it was the Georgia legislature trying to roll back some tax incentives they gave to Delta to be in their state. Oh, but I thought these tax breaks for corporations, trickled down and created economic success for everybody. Well, if that's the case, of course it's not. But if that were to be the case, well, then you're contradicting your economic philosophy in order to what? To push a cancel culture because somebody disagreed with your position. They are doing exactly the gaslighting that they claim everybody else is doing.
Dominic, what's worse? Telling the big lie or believing the big lie out of, ignorance, one must hope. Which is worse?
It's hard, man, because you can learn. I mean, if willful ignorance is not an excuse, certainly if you know the facts and lie about it, that's a bad thing. I guess I'd have to say that'd be just slightly worse than the willful ignorance, presumably presented by these Republicans in this regard.
So they're lying.
They're lying.
Of course they're lying. And the American people and the people of Georgia, I think they see that. I mean, when Major League Baseball, when Delta Airlines, when Coca-Cola, when major corporations come out, and it's not just those, because there's other states and other corporations responding. Why would they do so and then make it all up? The only one motivated to do that is Donald Trump and you, Brian Kemp. Come back. More Devil's Advocates on the other side. Easter Monday, Championship Day. Welcome to it.
A man stands alone at a plate. This is the time for what? For individual achievement. There he stands alone. But in the field, what? Part of a team.
So relax, let's have some fun out here. This game's fun, okay?
Like, wow, Scoob, it's Devil Radio. Rebel Radio?
Hi, this is Brad from Zero Res. If you need someone to help with your carpet cleaning, business or residence, please give us a call. We have the best system available and an amazing team of friendly technicians. Call us at 848-9000 or schedule online at zeroresmadison.com.
Wisconsin is stimulated. More than $5 billion in COVID-19 aid. That's more than $3,000 in the bank account of the average Wisconsin household right now for the WBA. Let Devil Radio help your company benefit from the expected leap in consumer spending. Advertise here and reach our engaged local and statewide audiences while getting the exceptional value of our pandemic ad pricing. Ending soon. Go online at devilradio927.com today to get started.
Oh, crap.
Stream Progressive News and Talk 24/7, as well as download exclusive podcasts and interviews at devilradio927.com. That's devilradio927.com.
AP News Minute. The Supreme Court is siding with Google over Oracle.
The $8 billion dispute involved Google's creation of the Android operating system used on most smartphones, which relied in part on computer code and organization used on Oracle's Java system. Oracle calls it an egregious act of plagiarism, but Google argues it's long settled common industry practice, and there's no copyright protection for code that couldn't be written another way. The High Court ruled 6-2 for Google, with Justice Stephen Breyer writing the copying was fair use. In a dissent, Justice Clarence Thomas called it anything but fair. Only 8 justices heard the case because it was argued after Ruth Bader Ginsburg's death, but before Amy Coney Barrett joined the court. Sagar Magani, Washington.
The Supreme Court dismissed a case over former President Donald Trump's efforts to block critics from his personal Twitter account. I'm Ed Don.
Let me get right back to you. Sandra, those banners go out tonight. Can you pack them? Indeed, those unexpected growth can stretch your business thin. On machine 4? Like at Monica's print shop. To fulfill orders on time, she needs to get started hiring right away. I need Indeed. Indeed you do. And the moment you sponsor a job on Indeed, you get a short list of quality candidates from our resume database. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get a $75 credit for your first sponsored job post. Terms and conditions apply.
Are you one of the millions of Americans who experience occasional bloating, gas, or abdominal discomfort? Join the Align Healthy Gut Team Up and see how healthy your gut can feel. Align contains a quality probiotic strain developed by gastroenterologists. It adds more good bacteria to your gut to naturally help soothe your occasional digestive upsets with continued daily usage. This is the time to join the Align Healthy Gut Team Up from the #1 doctor-recommended probiotic brand. Sign up at alignprobiotics.com.
For Devil Radio, 92.7 FM and WTTN 1580 AM, I'm Luke Mathers with your headlines for Monday, April 5th. As of this weekend, Wisconsin is reporting 20% of the state's population is fully vaccinated against COVID-19. That is nearly 1.2 million Wisconsin residents. More than 3 million doses of the coronavirus vaccine have been administered in Wisconsin as of Sunday, with 63.3% of Wisconsinites ages 65 and up now fully vaccinated. The 7-day rolling average for new COVID-19 cases in Wisconsin was 589 daily cases yesterday. 1 week ago, the average was 473 daily cases. Mostly cloudy skies in the forecast today with a chance for a scattered shower possible, high today of 72 degrees. Possible thunderstorms expected to develop overnight with a chance of rain at 40% and an overnight low of 57 degrees. You're listening to Devil Radio, 92.7 FM and WTTN 1580 AM.
The Devil's Advocates, because freedom.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates radio show. Good to have the team back together. We got Fancy Brian on the board. We got Dominic in Milwaukee and Crudy in the broadcast bunker 2.0. And you make a big part of this show, at least when you dial at 844-967-2789. Do your part. Call now. Dominic, I want to throw this out there. Greg Sargent at the Washington Post. The eruption of fake GOP outrage in Major League Baseball is actually very clarifying. Let me clarify for you and the audience.
Please do.
Here's a juxtaposition that neatly captures the state of today's GOP. I know you prefer GQP. Republican lawmakers are telling their voters to get angry at corporations that express support for the voting rights of African Americans, while also telling them that raising taxes on corporations to fund infrastructure repair is socialism. Republicans are raging at Major League Baseball over its decision to move the All-Star game from Atlanta in response to Georgia's new voting law, which imposes various limits on ballot access that appear targeted at African Americans. Some are proposing legislation to revoke Major League Baseball's federal antitrust exemption. Looking at you, Senator Ted Cruz. The use of legislative power for that punitive purpose is bad enough, but this whole episode is clarifying in other ways. It shows how unrepentant Republicans are over their widespread support for certain former presidents' efforts to overturn the 2020 election and how hollow the GOP attacks on woke corporations truly are. First, let's be clear that what Republicans are really saying here. They aren't simply blasting MLB for moving the game, which some Democrats also opposed. They are criticizing the content of Major League Baseball's message about the Georgia law. Georgia Governor Brian Kemp, for instance, raged that MLB's message is based on fears and lies. Senator Ted Cruz of Texas ripped it as woke. Rep. Jeff Duncan of South Carolina managed the spectacularly Orwellian assertion that it would somehow undermine election integrity. Yes, the law does make it harder to vote, according to Greg Sargent. MLB statement declared that the MLB fundamentally supports voting rights for all Americans and opposes restrictions to the ballot box. It underscored its support for a future in which everyone participates and for fair access to voting. See where the Republicans would have an issue, Dom?
I mean, what a great supportive statement I think everybody should hold in this country.
Let me tell you why that's bad. The Republicans are denouncing this as wokeness, is clarifying. After all, the law would hamper access to the ballot, as the New York Times analysis shows. It places numerous new limits on vote by mail, cuts way back on drop boxes and voting, mobile voting units, and bans third-party groups from sharing food and water with people in voting lines. As the time concludes, the law will make absentee voter voting harder and create restrictions and complications that will hamper the right to vote. Republicans claim MLB is engaging in fear-mongering and lies about the law itself. To be clear, it's possible to legitimately disagree over what constitutes a restriction on voting and over whether sharply curtailing provisions relied upon disproportionately by African Americans limits fair access. Sargent writes, in my view, MLB's description is absolutely correct, but even those who disagree with it should concede it's not wildly absurd. It's plainly within the bounds of reasonable debate. And what Republicans are really revealing is that they can't open the door even a crack to any acknowledgement that such measures might threaten disenfranchising effects.
I'll jump in here, Crudy. Continuing on from Greg Sargent piece in the Washington Post. What's more, there is zero public rationale for any of them. Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger recently declared that Georgia's elections, quote, have never been more safe or secure. So why do these things, question mark? Republicans can't permit an honest debate on that question either. Instead, they insist they're necessary to ward off fictitious voter fraud or to restore people's confidence in the system. Admitting our 2020 elections were a great success would blow up those rationales. Meanwhile, the larger context matters. All this comes after President Donald Trump tried to strong-arm Georgia election officials to rig the 2020 results, and after Trump endorsed a candidate for Georgia's Secretary of State whose reason for running in his texted promise to try to overturn results that Republicans hate. And similar efforts are unfolding across the country, often justified with the lie that the election was stolen from Trump. See the state of Wisconsin and many other states. This is why efforts to narrowly measure the impact of the law on turnout so badly miss the larger story here. There is a place for such measurement, of course, but it ignores the vast civic degradation that this entire post-election campaign from Republicans has wrought. Even if voters who might be burdened by these measures do turn out anyway, they still constitute an effort to make it harder to vote for cynical partisan purposes, an act of deep contempt for fellow citizens based on fictions that are themselves having a terrible impact. Note, and we talked about this earlier, a new Reuters poll finds that 6 in 10 Republican respondents believe that the election was stolen from Trump. As former GOP strategist Tim Miller points out, Republican officials deliberately passed up the opportunity to disabuse GOP voters of this lie. You cannot seriously evaluate the Georgia law without reckoning with its role in the much broader campaign that's unfolding here and with all the damage it is doing. Indeed, that is central to understanding why corporations are reacting this way. Numerous corporations began putting out statements much earlier to condemn Republican efforts to overturn the election. So this whole display isn't just about Georgia. It may reflect a broader cultural impulse towards defending democracy and toward the need to denounce serious threats to it. The point here is not that MLB deserves to keep its antitrust exemption, something lawmakers have questioned for a long time, nor is it that MLB was necessarily right to pull the All-Star game out of Atlanta. Rather, it's that Republicans are threatening to use legislative power to punish MLB for criticism of the Georgia law that, while perhaps arguable, plainly constitutes a reasonable stance. This comes after Georgia Republicans tried to nix a tax break for Delta Airlines to punish it for criticizing the law. The Republicans are denouncing these things as unacceptable corporate wokeness. That Republicans, let me say that again, that Republicans are denouncing these things as unacceptable corporate wokeness is revealing enough on its own. It's even more visible that this comes as Republican officials are denouncing efforts to raise corporate tax rates to fund badly needed infrastructure repairs and other job-creating proposals as socialism. Of course, it's socialism, Crudy. It's AOC. It's wokeness. It's cancel culture. My opinions there. That is Greg Sargent at the Washington Post.
I love what Major League Baseball is doing, and Delta Airlines and Coca-Cola Corporation. And I love the response. Yeah, let's have this out. Let's hash it out publicly. And let's bring it to the attention of Georgia voters and Wisconsin voters and Arizona voters and Pennsylvania voters, how all across the nation. And you be the judge. Who's really telling you the truth? Is it Brian Kemp? Is it Donald Trump? Ted Cruz? I doubt it.
Right.
844-967-2789. We got this new thing. We try not to interrupt the phone number. You might be writing it down or dialing it right now.
Numerous limits, as Sargent writes, numerous new limits on vote by mail, cuts way back on drop boxes and mobile voting units, and bans third-party groups from sharing food and water with people in long voting lines. And I got to tell you, man, anything longer than an hour wait in any voting line, as far as I'm concerned, is voter suppression. I mean, you're going to make somebody wait 5, 6, 7, 8 hours in line to go vote? Are you freaking kidding me? That in and of itself is problematic. But these particular limitations, to what end? What will that do? What is wrong with drop boxes? Did you find any fraud with the drop boxes you had? And all the Georgia Republicans approved this current set of voting circumstances. The way that they held their elections was approved by the Georgia Republicans until they lost the election. And now they're going to go back and try to change it all because they lost without any examples of this fraud. They continue to claim him. And Raffensperger said himself, the Republican Secretary of State, this was a safe and fair election.
One last thought on Raffensperger. Let's not give him too much credit because he's been part of the purging efforts in Georgia as well.
Sure.
And here in the state of Wisconsin, Joe Biden won by 21,000 votes, a similar margin to Trump's victory over Hillary Clinton. But that came in the face of the fact that Wisconsin Republicans have overwhelmingly sought to be voter suppressive in their efforts here since the Voter ID Act way back in 2011. 11 subsequent bills signed into law, mostly by Walker. 844-967-2789. John from Hubertus. Welcome back, John. What do you got today?
Hey, John.
Hey, guys. I'm just listening to I think the laws they're passing, those people are just, I don't know what they're doing. They're not dealing with the minorities of the 1960s anymore. The people now, the middle class people, are motivated, and above and beyond that, so many of them are becoming educated, and they are really smart. And they are way smarter than most of the Republicans. And I think this is going to blow up in their face because when they do go to the polls and they jump through the hoops and they stand in line and they vote, it's like they'll have nothing to go to court.
John, I think we lost you. Appreciate you listening. Here's a couple of thoughts, though. I don't think most Republicans are stupid. I mean, certainly that factors in somewhere down the line. But there's plenty of business class Republicans, not dumb guys, not dumb women. Maybe a little selfish. They like the tax breaks. They like the outcomes. And if a couple eggs got to get broken, Trump tweets a little, well, so be it. But I don't think that makes them stupid. In fact, Dominic, plenty of reporting out there that the very same corporations that now are showing some wokeness, as these Republicans would describe it, well, some of those corporations have been giving money to support these very same Republicans, right?
Yes.
And I would say that is because the very same Republicans that would sell their soul and repeat this lie, this voter fraud lie, this Trump lie, are the very same Republicans that will repeat the climate change lie, are the very same Republicans that will repeat the NRA lie, the gun manufacturers' lies. Nothing meaningful we can do here. Can't change the climate. It changes over the course of many, many years. There was an ice age once, so can't do anything about it. They're willing to sell their souls, and they're willing to sell out their country for what? Campaign donations? And these corporations, they're doing what's in their corporate best interest. We talked about this last week sometime. These corporations are still giving money overwhelmingly to Republicans, the very same Republicans that are willing to perpetrate the big lie, because that's only one issue. And these corporations, they like the other big lies these people are willing to tell, the ones that give them benefit and don't hold them really accountable for pollution or things like that.
This is just the current iteration of the same issues that we have: corruption in politics, politicians taking money to push a particular stance that may or may not be true, and in these cases are not. I mean, we can't possibly be surprised by the Republicans doing this, as you mentioned with gun safety, as you mentioned with the environment, as you mentioned with, everything is socialism, right? I mean, this is how it is for the Republicans. It is a very natural extension for them to, it was an opportunity for them to jump on to Donald Trump's big lie story, because that's what they do. This isn't the first time the political party has dropped all pretense of reality and pushed a specific lie for political reasons. This is just the most recent time.
I never have to lie to make my political point. Right. I mean, I've said stuff I've discovered after the fact that, there's more information. And with that information, sometimes my opinions change.
Right.
As do my advocacies. But shouldn't the facts lead us? God, man, I should sell my soul. What do you think I could get for it?
Like $8, dude.
It's rode hard and put away wet. It'd have to be more than $8, but probably less than 100. Come back with us. More Devil's Advocates. Phone lines open and the honoring of D-Bag of the Day.
Constant through all the years, Ray, has been baseball.
It's not good. It hasn't been good. We've been against it.
Well, let's give him credit. At least it didn't spike himself.
Our friend Scott Russ.
Johnson's going to have this hearing next week. The way in which he has misused and abused his office in order to try and further these crackpot theories he had 2 anti-vaxxer hearings. I don't understand what the point of that is. It's one thing to be like, all right, if you're a Republican, you're like, I'll just try and forget that Trump said we might be able to inject ourselves with bleach to solve this COVID problem. But why would you so revel in your own crapulence that you would actually have several hearings in the United States Senate?
Listen to Devil's Advocates live weekdays from 2 to 5 p.m.
We're 1 year into the COVID pandemic, and it's clear that we can't afford more obstruction from Republicans like Senator Ron Johnson. He's twice voted against COVID relief bills that would have helped struggling Wisconsin families. We can and we must provide people the relief they need to take care of their families. Together, we can create a better future. Text ACT to 668-366 to join Move On. Message and data rates may apply. MoveOn.org. Political action paid for and is responsible for the content of this advertising. Poll.moveon.org. Not authorized by any candidate or candidates committee.
Hi, this is Dom from the Devil's Advocates, inviting you to join us on Patreon.com. Patreon allows for our audience to access exclusive programming not available anywhere else and gives you the ability to directly support the greatest radio show ever. History's patrons have supported the works of Michelangelo, Leonardo da Vinci, Monet, and now with your support, the Devil's Advocates. So please go to Patreon.com and search the Devil's Advocates to pick your subscription. That's Patreon.com and the Devil's Advocates, the greatest radio show ever.
the Devil's Advocates.
Darren from Madison tells us he's a former Capitol Police officer.
You can't even compare the two of what happened, yesterday and with Act 10.
Darren, did you as a Capitol Police officer ever witness any violence in the Wisconsin State Capitol?
Nope, not at all. It's about as peaceful can be when it comes to peaceful protesting. It was an unlawful assembly. But at the end of the day, there was no violence at the end of the day. It was people coming in and singing.
Listen to Devil's Advocates live weekdays from 2 to 5 p.m.
Warning, listening to the Devil's Advocates may expose you to opposing views.
And we are back. Thank you for listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show. Phone lines are open. You can join us at 844-967-2789.
Quick story, and then we'll get on to the nominations of the D-Bag of the Day. Dominic, state legislators across the country who have pushed for new voting restrictions and also seized on former President Donald Trump's baseless claims of election fraud have reaped more than $50 million in corporate donations in recent years, according to a new report by Public Citizen, a Washington-based government watchdog group. Here are some of the big names, Dom. Telecom giant AT&T, one of my favorites. We got all kinds of business with AT&T. I shake a fist nearly every month. AT&T was the most prolific, donating over $800,000 since 2015 to the authors of proposed restrictions, co-sponsors of such measures, or those who voted in favor of the bills, the report found. Other top donors amongst the same period include Comcast, Philip Morris USA, United Health Group, Walmart, Verizon, General Motors, and Pfizer. The money may not have been given to with the voting laws in mind, but it nonetheless helps cement Republican control in state houses where many of the prohibitive measures are now moving forward. So there you have it. And I would point out the Widow Hendricks right here in the great state of Wisconsin, and the Uline Corporation. There were the owners thereof, Dick and his wife, two Wisconsin Republican billionaires that have given millions and millions of dollars individually to support these very same insurrectionists right here in our backyard. Millions, like in $1 million plus donations in singular. I mean, Uline's and they're up to what? It's a big number. It's more money than I will see in my entire lifetime.
A little bit more
stacking your wallet on top of mine.
In the AP, as Curdy reported, companies donated at least $50 million to lawmakers who supported voting restrictions, including $22 million in the 2020 campaign cycle. At least 81 Fortune 100 companies have given a combined total of $7.7 million to supporters of the restrictions. Nearly half of all Fortune 500 companies donated a combined total of $12.8 million to supporters of the restrictions. About 3/4 of the companies that changed their donation policies after the U.S. Capitol attack have also given to lawmakers who supported voting rights restrictions, and more than 60 companies have given at least $100,000 to lawmakers who support those restrictions. Again, the piece at the apnews.com.
Well, Dominic, let's move on to the individuals and the nominees for D-Bag of the Day, starting with your former president, Donald Trump's campaign. Did you hear about his latest grift? The fact that they would take and they would fleece the sheeple looking to give money. I forget, Win Red, I think their organization.
Win Red, yeah.
And they made it harder and harder. They would sign you up for a recurring donation. And first you had to opt out once. But by the end of the campaign, it got to the point where you had to opt out twice to avoid giving a recurring donation. Some poor bastard gave almost $1,000 as a one-time donation. They cleaned the guy out of like $8,000. And apparently the rate at which people called their credit card companies and didn't want to pay the additional dollars, there was like an 11% rate of people saying they're taking my money. 11% of all the donors to the Trump campaign at the end. Now, by contrast, apparently Joe Biden had something like 2.2% of donors that called back and wanted to change their arrangements after the fact. But that means that Trump's like 500% worse. In our understanding, Donald Trump's campaign had to return Their give back was $122 million.
Whoo. And
that's a lot of
just
grifting. That's just the ones that complained.
Forbes reporting this one, a staggering sum, 122.7, so almost 123 million refunds to supporters in 2020. That's just 2020. Nearly 11% of the money raised, according to the report, unless donors inspected the fine print of an online disclaimer and manually unchecked an opt-out box, the donor's credit card would be charged weekly until election day arrived. Damn. Apparently, at some point, they were refunding about $720,000 a day.
That's the refund total?
That was the refund amount.
That seems like a lot. That seems like sort of a D-bag move to take one's own followers and try to double down, triple down, quadruple them down against their will, beyond their consent if they don't read the fine print and double down, opt out. I mean, what a fine business practice.
Do they get their campaign run by Wells Fargo?
Ooh, ouch, Brian. Well done, sir.
D-bag of the day.
Oh, slow down. He didn't win. We've got a different nominee. And I think the more deserving D-bag of the day, because if you're dumb enough to give money to Donald Trump, you deserve to get robbed by the man.
Come on.
Just saying.
No one deserves to get robbed.
Well, if you're a Trump supporter, but anyways, the other guy, the more D-baggish guy, Justice Clarence Thomas. Clarence Thomas moves to erode the First Amendment in retaliation against tech companies that punish Trump. You know, because if you tell the big lie, you get your Twitter account canceled, Dom. Well, Supreme Court Justice, conservative, you had to label him as such. Clarence Thomas says the judges will soon have no choice but to regulate the tech companies that punish former President Donald Trump for inciting a failed insurrection. Punish them for punishing Trump for inciting a riot in an insurrection. Thomas made the remarks in Monday's Supreme Court opinion that vacated a lower court ruling, which had prevented Trump from blocking certain Twitter followers who he did not want to comment on his tweets. If you set up a public Twitter account, be it AOC or Donald Trump or Robin Vos in the state of Wisconsin, you can't block people. But anyways, here's what Thomas wrote. The petitions highlight two important facts. Today's digital platforms provide avenues for historically unprecedented amounts of speech, including speech by government actors. Also unprecedented, however, is the concentrated control of so much speech in the hands of so few private parties. We will soon have no choice but to address how our legal doctrines apply to highly concentrated, privately owned information infrastructure, such as digital platforms. Here's the gist of it. He wants to remove the 230 protections, right? Where if I put something on Facebook, Facebook is not responsible for my words.
They're not liable for your actions on their platform.
But if Facebook or Twitter, for example, takes away the former president's ability to tweet because he's perpetrating a big lie and, start a capital insurrection, well, then they must have their protections removed because they're somehow stopping Trump's free speech?
Question mark?
That's a D-bag move. Clarence Thomas, you are today's D-bag of the day. Come back. More Devil's Advocates.
D-bag of the day.
It's a major award.
The people voted to give Democrats a mandate for bold action. From COVID relief to climate change and racial injustice, the problems we're facing are large, and we need bold solutions. We can't afford more obstruction from Senator Ron Johnson and the Republicans. Text ACT to 668-366 to join Move On. Message and data rates may apply. MoveOn.org political action paid for and is responsible for the content of this advertising. Poll.moveon.org, not authorized by any candidate or candidates committee.
This is Dom from the Devil's Advocates. Cody and I have been doing this show for almost 10 years, and we've never had a more engaged, dialed in, and motivated audience, and we love them for it. Now is the time for you to reach the greatest audience ever. Call now and advertise with the Devil's Advocates and Devil Radio, 92.7 FM and WTTN 1580 AM. Get your message out and let the greatest radio audience know how to support your business. Call Luke at 608-819-TALK. That's 608-819-8255. Or go to darnwi.com. You are listening to WTTN Columbus, W224EG Madison, always streaming at devilradio927.com.
AP News. I'm Ed Donahue. In Minneapolis, the emergency room doctor who pronounced George Floyd dead testified he theorized at the time Floyd's heart most likely stopped because of a lack of oxygen. He suffocated. Minneapolis Police Chief Madaria Arradondo testified about placing someone in custody.
We have a duty of care. And so when someone is in our custody, regardless if they're a suspect, we have an obligation to make sure that we provide for their care.
The defense argues former officer Dere Chauvin did what he was trained to do, and Floyd's use of illegal drugs and health conditions caused his death. The CDC is reporting a spike in coronavirus cases among young adults. The Norwegian Cruise Line is asking for permission to resume trips from U.S. ports July 4th.
The CDC has blocked cruise ships from U.S. ports since last spring, but has a conditional plan to allow them back in without specifying when. In a letter to CDC Chief Rochelle Walensky, Norwegian Cruise Line Holdings says it wants to start U.S. sailing again at 60% of capacity, rising to full capacity in September. It says it'll require passengers and crew to be fully vaccinated against COVID-19 at least 2 weeks before sailing. The company says its precautions go well beyond those taken by airlines, hotels, and others in the travel and leisure industry that have already reopened. Sagar Magani, Washington.
Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell responded to President Biden's claim a new bill in Georgia limits black voting.
It's simply not true.
Major League Baseball is moving the All-Star game from Atlanta because of the voting bill, and companies have reacted.
My advice to the corporate CEOs of America is to stay out of politics.
A police official tells the AP the Capitol police officer killed last week was not stabbed, slashed, or shot. This is AP News.
And let me get right back to you. Sandra, those banners go out tonight. Can you pack them? Indeed knows unexpected growth can stretch your business thin. On machine 4? Like at Monica's print shop. To fulfill orders on time, she needs to get started hiring right away. I need Indeed. Indeed you do. And the moment you sponsor a job on Indeed, you get a short list of quality candidates from our resume database. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get a $75 credit for your first sponsored job post. Terms and conditions apply.
Are you one of the millions of Americans who experience occasional bloating, gas, or abdominal discomfort? Join the Align Healthy Gut Team Up and see how healthy your gut can feel. Align contains a quality probiotic strain developed by gastroenterologists. It adds more good bacteria to your gut to naturally help soothe your occasional digestive upsets with continued daily usage. This is the time to join the Align Healthy Gut Team Up from the #1 doctor-recommended probiotic brand. Sign up at alignprobiotics.com.
Dane County is a caring, compassionate community. As County Executive Joe Parisi knows, our people and places are special. That's why he built a partnership that created mental health teams in our schools, strengthening an unrivaled safety net that puts people and families first. Through his commitment to conservation and parks, Joe has protected thousands of acres for future generations. His innovative work to clean our streams and lakes is removing century-old sludge from our waterways, improving water quality and reducing the risk of flooding. And his leadership to address climate change, even as others ignored it, has made Dane County government's energy usage 100% renewable and our air cleaner. Joe also knows everyone in our community deserves access to opportunity and a second chance, like the one he got after dropping out of high school as a young man. Joe knows this community because he's one of us, a proud progressive. Find out more about Joe's work as county executive and how to safely vote absentee this spring by visiting Parisi2021.com.
Paid for by Friends of Joe Parisi, Treasurer Darcy Burke.
Wisconsin is stimulated. More than $5 billion in COVID-19 aid. That's more than $3,000 in the bank account of the average Wisconsin household right now. For the WBA. Let Devil Radio help your company benefit from the expected leap in consumer spending. Advertise here and reach our engaged local and statewide audiences while getting the exceptional value of our pandemic ad pricing. Ending soon. Go online at devilradio927.com today to get started.
Oh, crap.
Hey, Rocker, I heard you have a rye whiskey.
I do, Jimmy. Rocker Rye Whiskey. The mash is a high rye with a touch of malted barley that makes it yummy.
And Rocker Rye Whiskey is dedicated to the Madison music scene?
It sure is, Jimmy. You can read the story on the back of the bottle at any of these fine locations. Star Liquor, Woodman's, Trixie's Liquor, Vic Pierce, Miller & Sons in Verona, Steve's Liquor, Total Wine, and enjoy Rocker Rye Whiskey at the Lazy Oaf Lounge and Sal's Dark Horse. Find out more at rockervodka.com.
For Devil Radio, 92.7 FM and WTTN 1580 AM, I'm Luke Mathers with your headlines for Monday, April 5th. Beginning today, Wisconsinites 16 and older are eligible for the COVID-19 vaccine. The expanded eligibility comes nearly a month ahead of schedule, which Governor Tony Evers attributed to the consistent vaccine supply from the federal government and the vast network of vaccinators getting the shots into the arms of Wisconsinites. Madison has become a hotbed of growth in the Midwest when it comes to video game development. Major developers such as Raven Software, PurBlue, and PUBG all have studios in the Madison area and plan on expanding their staffs in the upcoming year. Over the weekend, Milwaukee Bucks and guard Drew Holiday agreed to a 4-year contract extension worth at least $134 million. You're listening to Devil Radio, 92.7 FM and WTTN 1580 AM.
Warning, you are about to listen to the greatest radio show ever. And due to contractual obligations and to shield our airwaves' corporate licensees from any semblance of liability, responsibility, and gullibility, we must tell you the views represented on this show are not necessarily those of this station or its management. This radio show contains differing points of view on current political topics, and due to the nature of its contents, it should be heard by everyone. Thank you for listening.
3, 2, 1.
Now live from the heart of liberal Wisconsin, where the political party is just beginning, welcome to the Devil's Advocate Show. Best friends proving it's never personal, only politics.
Please allow me to introduce myself.
Now here are your hosts, Dom and Crute.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. Dominic, a championship Monday, a Brewers Cubbies Monday. That's what Fancy Brian's been dropping all the baseball stuff about. The championship. I mean, it's 4 games in, Brian. Can we talk about college basketball for one day?
Yeah, but there's this pitcher and then there's this batter and he's really cool and there's a lot of statistics and a bunch of things and stuff like that.
Yeah, but the Brewers lost 2 of 3 over the weekend, so I'm a little depressed about their outlook. I thought they were going 162-0.
Just like the Cubs were going to do, but sometimes you're going to have to do 161-1, or like the Brewers, 3 and 160. 159.
Who's doing the math?
Radio. Good talk.
Later.
Go Cubs.
The formerly employed Brian Kelly. Brett Johnson, our good buddy from AM 950, he's going to check in later in this hour, update us on the Dere Chauvin trial and the progress week 2. But Dominic, I wanted to start this hour by talking about the fact that Democrats don't even know what infrastructure is. At least to hear the Republicans tell it, right?
Well, I can understand how the Republicans would think they're experts at infrastructure, considering we had many, many, many infrastructure weeks under President Trump.
But they didn't actually pass anything or do anything.
Yeah, but they said the words, man. So, that makes them an expert.
Nobody in the history of this country has ever known so much about infrastructure as Donald Trump.
There were some dynamic infrastructure weeks in prior years, but Republicans are now complaining mightily this $3 trillion price tag. And God forbid if Joe Biden and his socialist ilk try to pay for this by raising corporate taxes. How dare they? Let's start with the president, Joe Biden. Let's hear what he had to say. An Easter message to the nation, talking about his infrastructure bill. Let's play it. Fancy Brian, starting with cut 50, please.
We will rebuild our nation. We will re-engage and reimagine what we can be. We'll remember that with faith, hope, and love, anything is possible.
We will build back better, as Joe Biden would say. Do you hear the birds in the background? Is he back on the terrace in Delaware?
Come on, man. It's spring in this country. It's beautiful out. I love it.
Renewal is almost here. Cut 51.
As we celebrate the renewal of this season, we know that long for dawn is almost here.
Trying to work a little Easter reference in, right? More from Joe Biden, your president, and mine, cut 52.
We look forward to next year when the White House will ring with joy of the season once again, and there'll be an Easter egg roll, God willing.
Well, Trump's been rolling people for years, but that's a different sort of roll, I suspect. Many going without comforts. More from the president, cut 53.
Easter's a day of joy when we celebrate resurrection and renewal. But this year, we know many are still going without the familiar comforts of the season.
You know what I've noted so far, Dom? I mean, it's April. Joe's been the president since January. No golf trips yet. You know, Trump would have been on the course this weekend.
Oh, maybe it's just because he's a terrible athlete. You know, I mean, Trump's a great golfer. I mean, what are you going to do? And what I haven't heard is the press is the enemy of the people. I haven't heard him, ripping on journalists at press conferences.
You didn't see the comeuppance Jen Psaki gave to Peter Doocy the other day? Let's go back. More of the president speaking on Easter Sunday. He's working hard as he can. Cut 54.
I'm going to push as hard as I can to change the circumstance so we can compete with the rest of the world. Everybody around the world is investing billions and billions of dollars in infrastructure. And we're going to do it here.
I didn't like it much when Trump did the helicopter side pressers, and I don't care for it much under Biden. A couple more quick ones from your president, Joe Biden, talking about the corporate tax, cut 56.
Here you have 51 or 52 corporations of the Fortune 500 haven't paid a single penny in tax for 3 years. Come on, man.
Come on, man. No doubt.
One more, infrastructure. Biden, that is infrastructure. It's in there. Cut 57.
Now they're saying that there's only a small portion of what I'm talking about is infrastructure. The fact of the matter is that when you're in a situation where you can't turn out a water fountain in school and worry you're going to drink polluted water and affect your health, replacing all those pipes is infrastructure.
That would be infrastructure, according to Joe Biden. But don't tell that to Republicans.
And the Republicans think that replacing lead pipes is not infrastructure? Like only roads and bridges count as infrastructure if you're a Republican? Is that their basic premise?
I'm not clear, Dom. And only roads and bridges in Republican districts.
All right.
Preferably Republican districts. You might have to pass through a couple of Democratic districts. Delay the roads in the Republican districts. Bernie Sanders tweeted out this weekend. You shared this, Tom. Federal income taxes paid last year by the Nike Corporation, 0. FedEx, 0. Zoom, we're on it right now, 0 corporate taxes. Federal income taxes, according to Bernie Sanders. Dish Network, 0. Salesforce, 0. Hewlett Packard, 0. Kinder Morgan, 0. Archer's Daniels Midland, 0. Booz Allen, 0. Charter Communications, 0. Edison, 0. Duke Energy, 0. Hashtag tax the rich.
Jennifer Rubin wrote a little bit here. I just want to share one paragraph for you talking about this. The Institute on Taxation and Economic Policy, and I think this references the comments made by President Biden. The Institute on Taxation and Economic Policy found 55 big companies that paid no federal income taxes at all last year. Here's the quote. The tax avoiding companies represent various industries and collectively enjoyed almost $40.5 billion in U.S. pre-tax income in 2020, according to their annual financial reports. Rubin writes, had they actually paid at the current rate, the 21%, collectively, they would have paid $8.5 billion the Institute found. Instead, these businesses received $3.5 billion in tax rebates. Rubin writes, quotes the report. In short, their total corporate tax base for 2020, including $8.5 billion in tax avoidance and $3.5 billion in rebates, Crudy, doing math on the radio, comes to $12 billion. Not only did they pay the 21% at $8.5 billion, they received money from the government on top of it.
Zero taxes and I get a refund, even though I'm highly profitable. How do I get that sweet deal? Because they keep taking, well, I do have a sweet deal in that I am a corporate owner. And let's not forget, Dom, even before you get to the gross profit pre-tax, I have a lot of say. Corporations have a lot of say on how they represent their income on their financial sheets. Maybe you make some investment in a new infrastructure. You know, you build a factory, you pay some raises. All those kind of things would lower your corporate profit, right?
Yes.
You could lower that number. But if you can profit $40 billion and not pay any taxes anyways, why would you give anyone a raise? What's the incentive? Why would you invest in a new factory, even though it might be more efficient?
The lower tax
What would be the incentive? If I get all the money at 0%, why would I invest in anything? There's nothing being offset.
And knowing that someday, and the day is now, that a Democratic president would be in, and someday Democrats would perhaps run the Congress, that tax rates would probably go back up. I mean, 21% is super low. And even at 21%, you got lots of people that aren't paying. So they know right now, if you're going to cash out, if you're going to do anything you can, well, you want to be as profitable as you possibly can in the very current sense, because you're paying that rate at 21%. If it goes up to 28 or back up to 35%, like it was prior to Trump, well, then you're going to have to pay a whole lot more. But again, given the circumstances, and the income tax rate is only one thing, the write-offs, the allowabilities, the other perks that come along with this. And let's not forget, I mean, there's a reason why corporations are putting all sorts of money into politicians, because they get themselves some little perks that perhaps the rest of us are not able to enjoy.
You don't even know what a write-off is. Downick, the U.S. Treasury Secretary, Janet Yellen, she was over at the Fed, right? Had a couple of quick bites. If we got time, we're going to play them. Here's what Yellen said about corporate taxes. Stop the race to the bottom. Cut 40.
We're working with G20 nations to agree to a global minimum corporate tax rate that can stop the race to the bottom.
One more from Yellen. Cut 41.
Together, we can use a global minimum tax to make sure the global economy thrives based on a more level playing field in the taxation of multinational corporations and spurs innovation, growth, and prosperity.
What if everyone, including corporations, had to pay some taxes no matter what haven they chose, Dom? Be it the Caymans, be it Ireland, somewhere else. They want to offshore. They want to keep their profits from being taxed, Dom. So what do? They just fail to patriate those dollars. They just keep them offshore.
Leave them in Ireland. Yeah, it's cheaper over there. I think it's a great idea, especially if you're looking for some equity and something to balance off what the corporations have been doing. The race to the bottom, the transfer of industry to other countries simply because of the tax rate and perhaps even the cheap labor and lower regulations. Well, we can impact that. If companies are going to engage with this market in this country and us, well, we have some dictate that we can give to them.
So Joe Biden says, let's make a $3 trillion investment in infrastructure and let the rich pay for it. And Joe Manchin says, slow down. I'll tell you all about it on the other side. More devils.
Jerry, all these big companies, they write off everything.
I pay hundreds of millions of dollars in taxes.
You don't even know what a write-off is.
Nobody knows more about taxes than I do.
And they're the ones writing it off.
Come on, man.
my Congresswoman, Rep. Gwen Moore, over 100 Republicans signing on to that Texas lawsuit. What are your thoughts on your fellow Republicans in the House?
You know, honestly, this is what we all sign up for. This is a democracy. You run races. I've been involved in races where people lose, and I'm ashamed of the fact that we had one congressman, I guess he's brand new, who voted for this nonsense.
Listen to Devil's Advocates live weekdays from 2 to 5 p.m.
We're 1 year into the COVID pandemic, and it's clear that we can't afford more obstruction from Republicans like Senator Ron Johnson. He's twice voted against COVID relief bills that would have helped struggling Wisconsin families. We can and we must provide people the relief they need to take care of their families. Together, we can create a better future. Text ACT to 668-366 to join Move On. Message and data rates may apply. MoveOn.org. Political action paid for and is responsible for the content of this advertising. Poll.moveon.org. Not authorized by any candidate or candidates committee.
Not completing high school is more of a social thing than it was an academic thing. Even though all these years have passed, I still had that longing to have my diploma.
At age 30, Carissa finished her high school diploma.
If you're even considering getting your high school diploma, you can do it.
No one gets a diploma alone. If you're thinking of finishing your high school diploma, you have help. Find free adult education classes near you at finishyourdiploma.org. That's finishyourdiploma.org. Brought to you by the Dollar General Literacy Foundation and the Ad Council.
The Devil's Advocates.
We've got U.S. Senator Ron Johnson, our friend, live via phone. Ron, in all seriousness, if this was Barack Obama, you'd be screaming, "Stormy, stormy, stormy," from the rooftops.
You're too young to understand this excuse. This would be the Sergeant Schultz answer. I know nothing.
But as the chair of the HISCAC, sir, Homeland Security Governmental Affairs Committee, you could get to the bottom of this, could you not, Ron?
I see nothing. I know nothing.
Making radio great again. The Devil's Advocates, radio for the 99%.
And we are back. Thank you for listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show. You could be a part. Join us. 844-967-2789.
I got to join now. I was texting my wife back. She found my keys. I misplaced my keys. I was quite nervous.
Yeah.
I can't even lock the office.
How did you? I mean, you were home alone all weekend, Crudy, right?
I was.
Kids, yeah,
my kids and wife.
I don't know how you
gone.
survived without your wife, man.
Buddy, I cleaned my ass off. I was a wonderful husband this weekend. If at no other time in my entire marriage. No, dude, I cleaned the whole house. Like the good cleaning, the mopping and the scrubbing.
Wow, yeah, spring cleaning, baby.
Spring cleaning, at least the main living areas. And our shared bedroom, stayed out of the kids' bedrooms, and the lower level where the kids make their messes. So, the main living areas were quite clean. And I tell you what, man, I raked like 12 hours this weekend. My lower back's all kinked up. I have unthatched that yard. It's gorgeous. I went out and bought a new hedge clipper. I clipped the hedges. It's looking tip top over there at the Crude household.
Well done, sir.
Well, it's the only time I intend on doing any work for the entire summer. So, one and done. That's my plan.
I want the entire pool scrubbed, sterilized, and disinfected.
Yeah.
And so anyways, apparently, and, besides that, I got to walk the dogs. I got the 2 dogs. They're like leg humping hounds. They're following me around the house the entire 4 days.
You're the only human around, man. They need some love.
And they expect to get walked all the time, constantly. So apparently I took like the key part of my keys off the key ring, the key fob that actually turns the car on. And I must have thrown it in with the dog leashes. So my wife found them. Apparently they're going for a walk. Today is her turn in the barrel. I did get, I've tripled from the month of April, mostly while my wife was gone. I tripled my steps over last month.
Wow.
Tripled them. It's a lot of walks and a lot of raging.
Or you just didn't walk at all last month.
That could be. The warm weather gets my ass off the couch. And you perhaps as well. We'll take some calls this hour for Scherzies at 848. Let me try that again. 844-967-2789. Apparently I'm still in the backyard raking in my brain. Here's what I want to get to next. Joe Manchin. He's the problem in no small part. First and foremost, to pass this infrastructure bill, you're going to need the support of Joe Manchin, even if you do it reconciliation style. 50 votes plus Kamala Harris. You still need Manchin's vote. And here's his problem. Manchin says he won't support corporate tax rate hikes to 28%. Same guy that won't support the raising of the minimum wage for the workers, won't support the raising of the taxes on the corporations. And this is the same guy whose daughter is a bajillionaire because she raised the price of insulin as a CEO of a pharmaceutical company, was she not?
Yes, she was.
I mean, I forget, maybe the product wasn't insulin, but I'm pretty sure it was. Here is what the Hill.com reports. Centrist Joe Manchin, Democrat from West Virginia, they throw out that Democratic label pretty readily these days, who has emerged as a power broker in a 50-50 Senate, said President Biden's $2.25 trillion infrastructure proposal needs changes, and that raising the corporate tax rate to 28%, well, that goes too far, Dom. Manchin said Monday he would instead support raising the corporate rate to 25%, a level he identified last month as something he could back. Predicated on what? Just a grab from ass number, Joe? As the bill exists today, it needs to be changed, Manchin told the host of West Virginia's Metro News Talkline show. If I don't vote to get on it, it's going nowhere. It's not going anywhere. That's confusing. Manchin, speak more grammatically in the future, if you would. Manchin said other Senate Democrats are also concerned about the Biden proposal to raise the corporate rate from 21 to 28%. It's more than just me, Hoppy. There are 6 or 7 other Democrats who feel very strongly about this. We ought to be competitive, and we're not going to throw caution to the wind. But if you'll recall, Dom, the corporate rate in the United States as recently as 2017 was 31%. 31%. And since that bill has passed, we have seen the deficit increase just under Trump by $3 trillion. $3 trillion, right? And like half of that came just from the corporate tax cuts from 31 down to 21. Or was it 38? It was significantly higher than 25.
Yeah, I'm thinking 34. I don't have it in front of me. Manchin, also from the Hill, said raising the corporate tax rate to 25% would raise about $400 billion over 10 years. I think we should be paying for anything that adds to the debt, he said 2 weeks ago. I think the corporate tax should never have been below 25%.
So that is the lowest conceivable threshold. Although many corporations, because of all the loopholes, will completely avoid paying taxes.
And I'm not sure that this is really that big of a deal. Now, I get it. You know, people want to hate on Joe Manchin, and he's a linchpin in many regards. And, you know, for him to come out and just say it and act like this, well, I mean, it is what it is. But at the end of the day, we got to be a 21, 28, 34% tax rate. How many of those companies that Bernie Sanders pointed out paid zero tax rate regardless of what the percentage is? The tax rate on the profit is only part of it. What are the write-offs? What are the loopholes, right? What are the perks that these corporations are getting in order to push any sort of tax liability either into the future or put it off or just avoid it altogether? I mean, 21% of zero is not any better than 40% of zero. You know what I'm saying?
Doesn't the government take 15% between us and the employer match just when you show up, before you even get your federal taxes?
On the FICA.
The FICA SUTA, that stuff. Corporations. Can't live with them. Can't eat them.
Tax them?
Well, you could tax them. Probably more than 25% if you just tried, Joe Manchin. Come back, more Devils. Phone lines open, 844-967-2789.
The number's probably 28, 29, as high as 35. In fact, I even heard...
Stay informed with progressive news and talk on Devil Radio 92.7 FM and WTTN 1580 AM, McFarland's choice for essential radio.
Friends, this is Congresswoman Gwen Moore. On Tuesday, April 6th, we have a critical election for State Superintendent of Schools. Unfortunately, one of the candidates, Deb Kerr, is the wrong choice. On her watch, Black and brown kids were suspended 3 times more than white kids. Deb Kerr even had to delete her Twitter account because of a racist tweet. The good news is that there's a better choice. Dr. Jill Underly for State Superintendent of Schools. Jill Underly has the right experience and the right values to ensure every child has equal opportunity. She will fight for all our kids. Jill Underly is endorsed by the Democratic Party, and she has my vote. I hope Jill Underly has your vote too. We need Jill Underly to lift our kids up.
Paid for by Underly for Wisconsin.
Update. I'm Ed Donahue with an AP News Minute. Stocks finished higher, a record for the Dow up 373 points. The S&P 500 at a record high too. CDC Director Dr. Rochelle Walensky says coronavirus cases continue to go up.
Importantly, we are now entering our 4th week of increased trends in cases. While we are watching these increasing case counts with concern, the good news is that millions of Americans are stepping up every day to get vaccinated.
Walensky says the increase is in mostly younger adults. New York Mayor Bill de Blasio says the city set a record for vaccinations last week.
It is proof. It's always been about supply. Well, we have some good news there, too. We expect a big increase.
Andy Slavitt with the White House coronavirus team says a lot of people are getting vaccinated.
The worst thing we could do right now would be to mistake progress for victory.
I'm Ed Donahue.
Let me get right back to you. Sandra, those banners go out tonight. Can you pack them?
Indeed knows unexpected growth can stretch your business thin.
On machine 4?
Like at Monica's print shop. To fulfill orders on time, she needs to get started hiring right away.
I need Indeed.
Indeed you do. And the moment you sponsor a job on Indeed, you get a short list of quality candidates from our resume database. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get a $75 credit for your first sponsored job post. Terms and conditions apply.
Are you one of the millions of Americans who experience occasional bloating, gas, or abdominal discomfort? Join the Align Healthy Gut Team Up and see how healthy your gut can feel. Align contains a quality probiotic strain developed by gastroenterologists. It adds more good bacteria to your gut to naturally help soothe your occasional digestive upsets with continued daily usage. This is the time to join the Align Healthy Gut Team Up from the #1 doctor-recommended probiotic brand. Sign up at alignprobiotics.com.
For Devil Radio 92.7 FM and WTTN 1580 AM, I'm Luke Mathers with your headlines for Monday, April 5th. The Republican-ran legislature is proposing a bill to require Wisconsin school districts to host summer school after more than a year of virtual learning for some districts. In the proposed bill, a school must provide summer classes if less than 75% of students attended classes in person during the 2020-2021 school year. A majority of districts throughout Wisconsin have resumed in-person instruction. However, the state's largest districts like Madison and Milwaukee are still teaching students online amidst the ongoing pandemic. Mostly cloudy skies in the forecast today with a chance for a scattered shower possible. High today of 72 degrees. Possible thunderstorms expected to develop overnight with a chance of rain at 40% and an overnight low of 57 degrees. You're listening to Devil Radio 92.7 FM and WTTN 1580 AM.
The Devil's Advocates, the fix for political junkies everywhere.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates radio show. Happy Championship Monday to us all. Dominic, the plumb line, Paul Waldman over at the Washington Post. GOP claims of real infrastructure are silly. Why is the media playing along? Well, all you got to do is listen to us. We'll keep you informed. Republicans are still road testing their attacks on the giant infrastructure bill Democrats are assembling. And while some are predictable, It would be disastrous to raise taxes on corporations.
Which the state of Georgia Republicans just tried to do because they're mad at Delta for speaking out against their voter suppression acts. But please continue.
Their most frequent one is not only weak, it also shows how disconnected the debate in Washington can sometimes get from things that actually affect people's lives. Unfortunately, the news media are giving them a big hand. If this past weekend you tuned into the Sunday shows where conventional wisdom is lovingly shaped and admired, you would have seen the same theme replayed over and over about the infrastructure bill. Here are a few of the questions asked by the commentators. This $2 trillion ask, only about 5% of the funding goes to infrastructure. That was on CBS News, Margaret Brennan. There was another one. Can you honestly call this a focus on building roads and bridges? Here's another one. We're already having a debate of, hey, bridges, roads, that's infrastructure. Elder care is not. Chuck Todd, he always asks such fine questions. And his follow-up, oh, it's impeccable, Dom. That was asked of Pete Buttigieg. We've got some of that sound. And here's another one. Define infrastructure in your view. Here's another sort of a whopper, George Stephanopoulos. Only about 5% of this bill goes for traditional roads and bridges. So why not focus on the traditional core infrastructure? Well, you know what? And there's a few more examples there. Back to Waldman's writing. First, let's be clear that only 5% counts as real infrastructure. Talking point is utterly bogus. It defines infrastructure as only roads and bridges, leaving out railroads, water and sewer systems, the electrical grid, broadband, housing, and any number of other things that you would probably think of when you hear the word. The idea that only roads and bridges are infrastructure is like saying, you said your house needed work, but the floors and walls seem fine. Why bother fixing the leaking pipes and the broken roof and the electrical system that shorts out? That's not really the core of the house, which, as we all know, is floors and walls and nothing else. I read on. But the more important question, I'm not sure if I like Waldman's analogies as much as my own. But the more important question is why in the world would it possibly matter what the definition of infrastructure we use? Imagine it's a few years from now, the bill is passed, and as a result, the crumbling bridge in your town has been replaced and the roads have been resurfaced. No more banging your car over those potholes. We know that story here in the state of Wisconsin. We call them Scott holes. In addition, there's a new senior center in town with all kinds of facilities and services operated by skilled staff making a living wage. Do you think your neighbors will say, I like the bridge and the roads, but the senior center? Sure, my mother-in-law loves her fitness class there, and they helped her solve that Medicare problem she had, but it just doesn't seem like infrastructure to me.
Crudy, of course not, because that's not what people care about. They want to know that government did worthwhile things with their tax dollars, whatever category you might put each line item into. Now, it's true that Democrats have indeed thought broadly about what to put in this bill, including things that are not installed by burly men in hard hats, but what that they believe are important. Republicans may find some of those things like building housing or improving care for the elderly and disabled or promoting electric vehicles not to be worthwhile, which is fine. But if that's what Republicans think, they should explain why we shouldn't actually build more housing, and we shouldn't fund care for the elderly, and we shouldn't promote electric vehicles. Just saying this doesn't sound like infrastructure to me is not an argument. This isn't the Merriam-Webster editorial board. It's the U.S. government. So what if instead of asking, is this really infrastructure, about the various provisions in this bill, we ask, is this a good thing? You can apply that standard to both road repairs and increased spending on elder care. Is this something important and worthwhile? Will funding it in the way that is proposed accomplish the goals we set out? Will it improve life for Americans? If the answer to those questions is yes, then we probably should do it.
Well, that'll be a tough sell for all Republicans, Don, but please continue.
There may well be provisions in the initial proposal that don't meet that test, but I want to hear Republicans explain why they think we shouldn't invest in elder care or electric vehicle charging stations. Maybe their arguments are so well-informed and persuasive that we'll say, you know what, they're right. Democrats should take that out of the bill. I doubt it, but it's always possible, Waldman writes. That's how policy debate is supposed to work. We argue about which problems need addressing, then you argue about which solutions to deploy. If it all works out, the legislation that gets passed reflects the outcome of that deliberation, with the unworthy ideas jettisoned and the worthy ideas becoming law. But arguing about the definition of words such as infrastructure gets us precisely nowhere. Yet because one of the parties is repeating this talking point, journalists feel that to be tough, quote unquote, they have to use it to frame their questioning of the other party. The result is that we miss what's really important. So writes Paul Waldman at the Washington Post.
You know what's really wrong with so much of the Sunday shows in the punditry class? All questions of Democrats must be framed through the prism of how Republicans see the issue. Oh, it's not really infrastructure. Oh, it's only 5%. I mean, on damn near any issue, if you watch Chuck Todd, he got his talking points from Mitch McConnell. And that bothers me quite a bit because it helps to frame the issues in the way that Republicans think are important. But if Chuck Todd ever did a little research, looked at the big lie, at the track record of those making these claims, they might lack a little credibility. And the people making these claims that you then repeat in the form of a question for your fine guest, well, they undermine democracy in moving the American people forward, like investment in infrastructure.
Yeah, but I hear what you're saying, but as the journalist also has an obligation to ask questions that are going to be pertinent to the audience. And if Mitch McConnell is saying there's only 5% of this in quote unquote infrastructure, well, presumably there's 75 million Trump supporters out there who are going to be thinking the same thing. So I'm not clear that addressing it in the terms provided by the minority leader in the Senate is a bad thing. Perhaps adding some context to it and pushing back on some assumptions, it should be more of a priority for the journalist involved.
I did see Chris Wallace, I think, was questioning Republican Senator Roy Blunt over the weekend. And Blunt's complaining about the price tag on the infrastructure bill. And he said, well, didn't Republicans lose all credibility on claiming to be fiscal hawks back in 2017
Right.
with the last tax deal? At least it was a strongly worded asked question. But that was on Fox News. What about you, Chuck Todd? You or I or Fancy Brian or any one of the fine hosts or producers or maybe just pedestrians walking by on the sidewalk could do at least as well as Chuck Todd in framing some of these questions.
A warm corpse, perhaps.
Let's get to the phones. We've got a fine guest joining us soon. Brett Johnson, our good friend from AM 950, going to update us on the Dere Chauvin trial week 2. Right now, going to patient Mark from the SAC. Mark, what do you got for us?
Hey, Mark.
Hey, guys. Well, Mitch McConnell made actually a true statement. He said corporations should get out of politics. And I should say, yes, Mitch, they should get out of politics. Quit giving all that money to all you guys and bending the will from corporate needs to, away from people's needs to corporate needs.
Well, didn't Mitch McConnell have a backyard aluminum plant being funded by Deripaska? And apparently after Trump won the election, Deripaska, the Russian oligarchs, no longer interested in funding the pet project at Mitch
after
McConnell's
Trump lost
backyard.
the election. Yeah, now the deal is on the skids.
Yeah, but for the electric grid, I mean, the auto companies are going to stop making gasoline-powered vehicles, so we need a better electric grid. We need an electric grid that isn't leaking so much electricity now that it's incredibly wasteful. I mean, we need better pipes. That's all that stuff is infrastructure. I mean, societies have collapsed because government has not maintained the infrastructure. I think like it was Babylon or something like that didn't maintain their river, their ports, dredged them out, so they silted up, so they lost that infrastructure. So the society, that government collapsed. I mean, we have to maintain our infrastructure, and it's all the electric grid, our rail lines, our highways, our waterway, our water. I mean, that's all infrastructure. And if Republicans can't see that, then, if they're so fond of Jim Crow, I mean, getting to the election thing, put all those Republicans in crow cages and let them have discussions with the crows that are picking at them.
The birds. Thanks for the call, Mark. Appreciate it. I think the point is well made. There's lots of things above and beyond just, bridges and roads that are infrastructure. Hell, lots of people don't have cars. Lots of people, will use transit or bikes or walk to their places. So I think there's a lot to be had in this discussion. But and let's not forget how enthusiastic Republicans were, at least, with the words that coming out of their mouth when Trump was in the White House about infrastructure week and infrastructure week. So they're down presumably with some sort. We've heard about infrastructure for a long time. We know we have lacked the investment, but the Republicans don't give a damn about infrastructure. What they're concerned about, which may be waning, is the impact it will have on their constituents, which of course are the corporations. But now you got this battle going on with the wokeness and all that on the corporations and the Republicans. That's going to be real interesting to see how that plays out.
More conversation on the infrastructure. Pete Buttigieg went on the Snuffleupagus on the ABC News. Let's play some of Pete Buttigieg. He's the transportation secretary. Played for the people. Cut 30, Brian.
I heard the governor of South Dakota recently saying this is an infrastructure. It's got money for pipes. Well, we believe that pipes are infrastructure because you need water to live.
More from Pete Buttigieg.
Well, he's really smart.
Cut 31.
I heard the governor. Too many families now live with the threat of lead poisoning. That's absolutely infrastructure. You talk about roads and bridges, but also airports and ports. We need to make sure that we have broadband.
More of Pete Buttigieg, transportation secretary for the Biden administration, talking infrastructure on the ABC. Cut 32, Brian, please.
This is a once-in-a-lifetime moment. I don't think in the next 50 years, we're going to see another time when we have this combination of a demonstrated need, bipartisan interest, widespread impatience, and a very supportive president.
But here's where you're going to lose so many of the Republicans. Pete Buttigieg, be careful what you brag about, like union jobs. Cut 33.
I'm not saying we're going to take a machinist and turn them into a computer programmer. What I'm saying is that we're going to have jobs for insulators on these building retrofits and painters and carpenters, all good union jobs.
Well, damn it. You just lost all the right to workers. Right. So much for bipartisan support. A little more from Buttigieg. Cut 34.
So I understand there is hesitation, especially because, frankly, there have been a lot of moments where promises have not been kept to labor, which is one of the reasons why I think having the most pro-labor president we've had in a very long time is going to work very well for workers.
And corporations, they need to pay. Cut 35, Pete Buttigieg.
Corporations, we all know, have not been paying their fair share. A lot of multinational corporations have been paying zero on billions of dollars in profits.
Brett Johnson, our fine guest next. Bill from Deerfield, your call right now. What do you got for us, Bill?
Hey, Bill.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
yes.
You got like a minute, Bill.
Okay.
Oh, no. What happened to Bill?
Oh, no. We lost it, Bill. Oh, come on, man. So close.
We need
Bill.
to invest in our messaging infrastructure.
Bill certainly does.
Well, do you know it's Bill's fault, or could it be that corporate behemoth AT&T's fault? They've always got money to invest in some Republicans. Maybe that's the only infrastructure investment they really need. Come back with us. Brett Johnson, AM 950's own, is going to update us. Dere Chauvin trial, week number 2, more Devil's Advocates. And then it's the happier 4 o'clock happy hour and more of your calls. And Tony Evers has declared another emergency. Is this a backdoor mask mandate? We'll tell you all about it in the happier hour. Brett Johnson's next.
Stand up and let's start showing just where our lives are going to.
Who here likes a good story about a bridge?
Do I look like a socialist? Look at my career, my whole career. I am not a socialist.
You keep using the word. I don't think.
Listen to Devil's Advocates live weekdays from 2 to 5 p.m.
Thanks for the job you do. It sure showed in the Supreme Court.
But I just want to thank you guys for your program.
Thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You don't get enough credit for this. We've never had a voice ever in this state.
So I think you guys really need to take a bow.
Thanks again for your work. It's really important. You need these guys. They're there for all of us.
You're welcome, everybody, and thank you.
The people voted to give Democrats a mandate for bold action. From COVID relief to climate change and racial injustice, the problems we're facing are large, and we need bold solutions. We can't afford more obstruction from Senator Ron Johnson and the Republicans. Text ACT to 668-366 to join Move On. Message and data rates may apply. MoveOn.org political action paid for and is responsible for the content of this advertising. Poll.moveon.org, not authorized by any candidate or candidates committee.
Hi, this is Dom from the Devil's Advocates inviting you to join us on Patreon.com. Patreon allows for our audience to access exclusive programming not available anywhere else and gives you the ability to directly support the greatest radio show ever. History's patrons have supported the works of Michelangelo, Leonardo da Vinci, Monet, and now with your support, the Devil's Advocates. So please go to Patreon.com and search the Devil's Advocates to pick your subscription. That's Patreon.com and the Devil's Advocates, the greatest radio show ever.
Once again, the American public has some reading to do. In a 29-page indictment today, Americans need to take a look at page 6, paragraph 20, and here come those important 8 words: to interfere with the 2016 U.S. presidential election. That is it.
Jim, I'm going to make a confession on behalf of the panel. Dom's not going to read the indictments.
Come on, maybe.
The Devil's Advocates, political commentary from the back of the class. The Devil's Advocates, tackling the issues you're not allowed to talk about at the dinner table.
And we are back. Thank you for listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show. Make sure you check us out on the social medias at Devil Radio on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube, the Devil's Advocates Radio.
Dominic, we welcome back a fine guest and a good friend. He is Brett Johnson from AM 950 in Minneapolis. He's been checking in for the last couple of weeks, at least, on the Dere Chauvin trial. Brett, welcome back to the big show.
Hey, Brett.
Hey there, guys.
Week 2 has begun in the Dere Chauvin trial, obviously, for kneeling on and it's being alleged killing George Floyd. It's still the prosecution's case at this point. Where do we stand today in the testimony?
Yeah, so we did get some testimony today from the Minneapolis Police Chief, Maria Arredondo, as he was testifying today and really highlighting the police department's policy on the use of force and the use of restraining potential people that they are arresting. And he went very much out of his way to talk about how it's not in the department's policy to be kneeling on someone's neck. That was the main point he was bringing up. He was also talking about how, well, it's supposed to be the police department that's determining if there is someone who is resisting arrest. It is the police who are supposed to figure out whether, well, is it due to an inability to comply, i.e. a medical condition, or for another reason. So he basically ran through a whole ton of these scenarios and different policies that they have and showed that they were very inconsistent from the actions that were taken by Dere Chauvin. He also brought up that it was very unusual for a fake $20 bill to escalate into the situation we saw between Dere Chauvin and George Floyd. And overall, at least from some of the pool reporters I've been seeing, it seems like he was very effective in communicating what that use of force policy and de-escalation policies are for the Minneapolis Police Department. So that was the main testimony we saw today that a lot of people were interested in hearing from the Minneapolis Police Chief.
Brett, when the opening statement started a week ago Monday, if my memory serves, Chauvin's counsel said effectively Dere Chauvin followed his training. And we've now seen 3 subsequent witnesses, to my perception, that directly contradict that statement. We had a training officer, we had a lieutenant, and now predicated on what you're telling me, I haven't watched the testimony yet today, but a 3rd Minneapolis police officer saying effectively, no, that's not what he was trained to do. Did you hear anything about the testimony today or something I've missed in the last week, Brett? Has anyone actually agreed with the assessment of Chauvin's counsel? He was within the course of his training?
As far as I can see, no one has agreed to that. That, yeah, this is a normal part of training, at least as I was reading about some of the cross-examination today. Attorney Nelson, who is, of course, representing Dere Chauvin, was trying to talk to the police chief, Arredondo, talking about these type of neck restraints. And Arredondo did acknowledge that occasionally, yeah, if you do need to restrain someone, you can, but it has to be with light to moderate pressure. And basically, it should not be for an indefinite period of time. Again, i.e. 9 minutes that we saw between Dere Chauvin and George Floyd. So he did acknowledge that, but I think quickly shot that down by saying even the actions taken by Chauvin were definitely outside the police department policy, being that he was, well, kneeling very heavily on his neck and doing it for 9 minutes for, well, was an indefinite amount of time, which is what Arredondo was saying the police officers should not be doing in Minneapolis. The other interesting thing I was reading about is that Nelson was trying to make the argument during the cross-examination that it was actually Chauvin kneeing on George Floyd's shoulder blade and not his neck. So I found that kind of interesting as well. I'm not sure if that can really do a whole lot in the trial, but that seemed to be an angle he was going on too, saying that, well, it was actually a shoulder blade and not his neck that Officer Chauvin was, or former Officer Chauvin was kneeling on.
Folks, you're listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show. Brett Johnson from AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota, joins us on the phone. Brett, the police chief fired Chauvin and referred to him as a murderer, if I recall, in the past. Did any of that kind of testimony come out today?
In terms of talking, calling him a murderer or anything, I didn't hear anything about that, at least in terms of his testimony. Arredondo, didn't really get into any sorts of personal attacks or anything on that. From what I was seeing, he was very clear articulating the department's policy on use of force and de-escalation. And some of the reporters who have been reporting on this talked about how he communicated this very effectively and is a very skilled communicator. And for the most part, and was able to, communicate very effectively is what I'm trying to go with. There was really no emotional name calling or anything like that. That's kind of what you were going on that.
Also, another note, the emergency physician reported that Floyd probably died because he was deprived of oxygen. Of course, this pushes back on what the defense has been saying. Any comments or notes on that, Brett?
Yeah, that's exactly what he was saying. Again, this is the guy, Dr. Bradford Langenfeld. He's the guy who officially pronounced George Floyd dead and did try to do some life-saving tactics at the hospital. And he said he died due to asphyxia, due to insufficient oxygen. Got to get my medical terms correct here. But that's what he was saying. Died of asphyxia, death by insufficient oxygen. And as he was going on and talking about this, he was saying, George Floyd did flatline while he was at the hospital about 30 minutes after his care. And at least during the cross-examination, this was, again, Nelson trying to frame this as saying, well, could this condition possibly be caused by a drug overdose? And it was conceded by Langenfeld that it is possible, but very, very unlikely.
Wow, Brett. It seems to me, and granted, we know this is still the prosecutor's case at this point. The defense hasn't really come up other than cross-examination, but it seems like, this parade of officers, including the police chief and fellow officers, seems to be, pushing back on this blue wall of silence. It doesn't look good when you see, cops testifying against cops for, the defendant in this case. Is that your impression? How are you seeing it on the ground?
Yeah, that's largely what I'm seeing as well. And the leadership of the police department has made it very clear that all of the actions taken by Chauvin were definitely outside of what we would ordinarily see from a police officer. So I think a lot of this, if there is any sort of training that was given to Dere Chauvin or any acknowledgement saying, you can restrain suspects by kneeing on their neck or using harsh tactics like that, maybe this was something coming from the police union. The former head of the Minneapolis Police Department, or Minneapolis Police Union, is a guy by the name of Bob Kroll, who has a very checkered past, including some ties to white supremacist groups. He's no longer the head of the union, but he's not testifying at the trial. But I don't know if they can necessarily do that as a defense and say, well, this was actually from the union. But as you said, at least from the leadership of the department, Chauvin is definitely kind of getting thrown under the bus.
Our buddy Brett Johnson, a fine voice from AM 950 in Minneapolis. Stick around there. Matt McNeil is next. The rest of you, the happier 4 o'clock happy hour with the Devil's Advocates is next. Brett, thank you very much. We'll talk soon.
Thanks, Brett.
All right, thanks, guys.
Thank God for the police.
Hi, this is Brad from Zero Res. If you need someone to help with your carpet cleaning, business or residence, please give us a call. We have the best system available and an amazing team of friendly technicians. Call us at 848-9000 or schedule online at zeroresmadison.com.
An industry that started in America should stay in America. At Ignite Glass and Gifts, we strive to offer tons of American-made products, most of which we create by hand in our glass blowing shop. You'll know your product will have thicker, longer-lasting glass, and it's artistically made right here at home. Madison's favorite for glass gifts and vape. Ignite Glass and Gifts, Monona Drive, Williamson Street, and Odana Road. Keep it American-made at Ignite.
5nines, your local single-source IT solutions provider, specializing in cloud technology, consulting, servers, networks, and hosting. We manage your IT so you can focus on running your business. Enjoy technology. Enjoy 5nines.com.
You are listening to WTTN Columbus, W224EG Madison, always streaming at doubleradio927.com.
AP News. I'm Ed Donahue. At the trial of former Minneapolis police officer Dere Chauvin, the doctor who pronounced George Floyd dead testified his theory was Floyd was suffocated.
At the time, based on the information I had, it was more likely than the other possibilities.
Also testifying was the police chief in Minneapolis, Dario Arradondo. He says an officer should think about things like the severity of the crime before using force.
So that's really key for me in terms of why I vehemently disagree that that was the appropriate use of force for that situation.
Dere Chauvin's defense claims George Floyd's health issues led to his death. Coronavirus cases are rising again. The AP's Sagar Magani reports the blame is being placed on younger adults.
We are now entering our fourth week of increased trends in cases.
And CDC Chief Rochelle Walensky says the rise predominantly involves younger adults.
This is among 18 to 24-year-olds where we're seeing actually some peaks in cases.
She says the increasing variant spread and the rise of youth sports and other activities are playing a role. She says the good news is the majority of American seniors have now been fully vaccinated. ER visits, hospitalizations, and COVID deaths among those 65 and older are all down. Sagar Magani, Washington.
The governor of Texas, Greg Abbott, says he will not throw out the ceremonial first pitch at the Texas Rangers home opener after Major League Baseball moved the All-Star game from Atlanta in response to Georgia's sweeping new voting laws. A drone discovered a possible second breach in a large Florida wastewater reservoir as more pumps were headed to the site.
Evacuation orders remain.
Piney Point Reservoir is in Manatee County, just south of the Tampa Bay area. Record highs for the Dow and the S&P 500 at the close. This is AP News.
Let me get right back to you. Sandra, those banners go out tonight. Can you pack them?
Indeed knows unexpected growth can stretch your business thin.
On machine 4?
Like at Monica's print shop. To fulfill orders on time, she needs to get started hiring right away.
I need Indeed.
Indeed you do. And the moment you sponsor a job on Indeed, you get a short list of quality candidates from our resume database. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get a $75 credit for your first sponsored job post. Terms and conditions apply.
Are you one of the millions of Americans who experience occasional bloating, gas, or abdominal discomfort? Join the Align Healthy Gut Team Up and see how healthy your gut can feel. Align contains a quality probiotic strain developed by gastroenterologists. It adds more good bacteria to your gut to naturally help soothe your occasional digestive upsets with continued daily usage. This is the time to join the Align Healthy Gut team up from the #1 doctor-recommended probiotic brand. Sign up at alignprobiotics.com.
Hello, I'm Sue Peck with Evolution Financial. Have you found yourself at that tipping point where you realize your finances have become just a bit too complicated? Or maybe you have so much on your plate and you'd love to focus on and support the passions that are most important to you. If you're looking for a local, independent, fee-only fiduciary financial advisor, contact me, Sue Peck, CFP professional with Evolution Financial. Search online for Evolution Financial Madison.
Evolution Financial is a registered investment advisor with the state of Wisconsin.
Hi, this is Cody with Go Landscaping. We do full yard installs, retaining walls, and certified dry stone masonry. Let us turn your dream for an outdoor living space into a reality. Go Landscaping is still taking on new commercial and residential lawn care for this summer, or let us bid your snow removal for fall. Find us at golandscapings.com. Again, that's golandscapings.com.
This is Dom from the Devil's Advocates. Cody and I have been doing this show for almost 10 years, and we've never had a more engaged, dialed in, and motivated audience, and we love them for it. Now is the time for you to reach the greatest audience ever. Call now and advertise with the Devil's Advocates and Devil Radio, 92.7 FM and WTTN 1580 AM. Get your message out and let the greatest radio audience know how to support your business. Call Luke at 608-819-TALK. That's 608-819-8255. Or go to darnwi.com.
Stream Progressive News and Talk 24/7, as well as download exclusive podcasts and interviews at devilradio927.com. That's devilradio927.com.
Wash your hands, avoid sick people, and touching your face. There are everyday actions to help prevent the spread of respiratory diseases. Visit cdc.gov/COVID-19. Brought to you by the National Association of Broadcasters and this station.
For Devil Radio, 92.7 FM and WTTN 1580 AM. I'm Luke Mathers with your headlines for Monday, April 5th. Major League Baseball made the decision over the weekend to pull the All-Star Game from Atlanta after Republican officials in Georgia passed new voter restrictions in the wake of the 2020 presidential election results. Soon after the announcement, officials throughout Milwaukee began lobbying MLB to host the All-Star Game in Milwaukee. This year's All-Star Game is set to honor Hank Aaron, who fittingly began and ended his career playing baseball in Wisconsin. The Milwaukee Brewers lost their season-opening series to the Minnesota Twins, winning on opening day and losing games 2 and 3 on Saturday and Sunday. The Crew is on the road this week with a series against the Chicago Cubs beginning tonight and later this week against the St. Louis Cardinals. You're listening to Devil Radio, 92.7 FM and WTTN 1580 AM.
Warning, you are about to listen to the greatest radio show ever. And due to contractual obligations and to shield our airwaves' corporate licensees from any semblance of liability, responsibility, and gullibility, we must tell you the views represented on this show are not necessarily those of this station or its management. This radio show contains differing points of view on current political topics, and due to the nature of its contents, it should be heard by everyone. Thank you for listening. Now live from the heart of liberal Wisconsin, where the political party is just beginning, welcome to the Devil's Advocate Show. Best friends proving it's never personal, only politics.
Please allow me to introduce myself.
Now here are your hosts, Dom and Crute.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates Radio Show. Dominic, we are sliding into the happier 4 o'clock Monday happy hour. I'm happy. I got all my lawn work done for the whole year. Check that box. Done. So I raked and the kids can mow and I'm done. So, we're done here. But Dominic, I saw this troubling headline at the Journal-Sentinel. And this is perhaps the most tyrannical and troubling headline since Scott Walker's propane emergency.
Uh-oh.
With a non-defined end date. Here it is. Governor Evers issues state of emergency as wildfires continue to blaze across Wisconsin. Now, I thought that this might be a backdoor effort, Dom, to institute another mask mandate.
Well, with all the smoke and the fires, I mean, perhaps everyone should wear a mask, if not for the COVID, to protect yourself from the smoke.
More than 1,000 acres of Wisconsin land have been impacted so far this spring with dry leaves, grasses, and plants serving as fuel. The Department of Natural Resources, not my yard, it's all thatched. I dethatched it, so I'm not starting the fire. The Department of Natural Resources typically handles wildfire suppression, but asked the governor for additional help due to the unusually dry conditions in the state. Got to go rake your forest, everybody. Evers' order will allow for the Wisconsin National Guard to be deployed along with its Black Hawk helicopters, with nearly the entire state experiencing high or very high fire risk. Protecting Wisconsinites from the destructive dangers of wildfires is a top priority, Evers said in an announcement of the order. The ability of the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources to have all available resources ready to be quickly dispatched is a critical element in keeping fire small and achieving swift containment. And Dom, there's been 320 wildfires already reported this year, burning more than 1,400 acres of land. The fire danger remains very high, kind of like you, my little buddy.
Very high. Fire danger remains very high across the state, meaning fires start easily, spread rapidly with increased intensity, and are very difficult to control. A brush fire started Friday in Menominee Falls, forced residents to evacuate their homes. If you've seen any video of that, quite stunning. Officials believe wildfire season will run longer this year than in others due to snow melting earlier than usual around the state. Gusty winds, low humidity, and dry grasses and ground cover are also contributing to the issue. Typically, fire season lasts through the month of May with about 4,000 wildfires a year. Most fires take place in the spring. In 2020, only 56 wildfires were reported, burning about 47 acres. The DNR are urging Wisconsinites to avoid any type of burning, including campfires. I know people like their campfires. Yeah, don't do that quite yet, unless you want to see a Black Hawk helicopter. I can't imagine Republicans are going along with this, man, especially with the talk of deploying Black Hawk helicopters.
It reminds me of Goodfellas, right? The black helicopters, they're whirling overhead. You thought it was the cocaine, but
no, it was real.
844-967-2789. No campfires. That's a bummer. I smelled campfires all around this weekend. You could smell them. That are wildfires, I guess.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Let's get to the phones. Bill tried us before. He's back. We're going to see if he's got a better line. Bill, welcome. What do you got for us?
Hey, Bill.
I'm sorry that my tin can on my string didn't meet up with your tin can on your string.
Well, we need some better infrastructure, Bill.
So what is infrastructure? You're talking about fires. Fires destroying tens of thousands of acres of land and homes. That is infrastructure. Where I'm from on the East Coast, Shenandoah National Park, the Great Smoky Mountains, those bridges are going to last as long as the Roman bridges lasted, because Franklin Roosevelt hired Italian stonecutters to build these amazing bridges. And people were saying, why? Now, Shenandoah and Great Smoky Mountains are the two most visited national parks in the country. Infrastructure is whatever it takes to make this country work. Pipes obviously are infrastructure. There is lead in pipes. Lead stops kids from learning. We need to fix the pipes. So I'm with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. We need more money in this bill. $10 trillion is a down payment on what infrastructure should be in this country. If we can lower the corporate tax rate from where it was under a pretty good Republican president, Dwight David Eisenhower, above 50%, it was 58%. Now it's 21%. And Republicans freak out that Biden wants to put it back up to 27%. Well, 80% of the country is with Biden. So let's go big, because this is our chance. And if we go big, the rest of the country, even West Virginia, even Alabama, possibly even Mississippi, might realize that this is the beginning of a 50, 100, 200-year democratic or American renaissance.
Well, that might be some wishful thinking. I'd be happy if they could remember that in 2024 when it was time to vote again, Bill.
Renaissance. That sounds foreign to me, Bill. Thanks for the call, man. Great points. I mean, I'd love to see that. And specifically, as you mentioned, the pipes. I mean, we've, Crudy and I've been up to Flint. We got big problems here in the city of Milwaukee. I mean, lots of major metropolitan areas have these issues.
I think broadband pipes, fiber optic pipes.
Well, sure. Yeah,
I mean,
if you got to have clean drinking, I mean, you got to have,
sure.
you got to get the lead out of the pipes, man. I mean, and granted, I mean, if that means laterals, that means all sorts of, homeowners and landlords got to get involved in to do this, to tackle this problem. But even the broadband, yes, certainly. I mean, think about how that can transform. Look at how people have reacted to the COVID, and people have realized and resetting their lives in some regard, and realizing, well, you can be productive and work and get these things done remotely. And if you can do that, if you have broadband, you don't have to worry about setting up a satellite internet system because there's no fiber out by you. I mean, that will increase the ability of people to get into jobs that they want, live in places they want to live in, and still be efficient at their jobs. So yeah, Bill, I mean, great call, man. I would like to see more money put into it. I haven't crunched the numbers. I don't know what it takes to replace all the lead pipes in this country, but that should certainly be a goal because those things are dangerous.
Yeah, but $10 trillion. You would blow Ron Johnson's mind trying to conceive of the stack of $1 bills to the moon and back.
I know, man. Well, here's a little note for you, Ron. The $100 bills are just as thick as a $1 bill. So maybe use a bigger denomination. I'm just saying.
844-967-2789. Matt calling from Johnson's Creek. Welcome, Matt. What do you got?
Hey, Matt.
Hey, guys. Hey, maybe I missed it right when you started reading, but so the governor issued that emergency declaration for the wildfires, and he put a limit on campfires. Now, I'm assuming, to remain consistent, that the GOP is already putting out legislation to try to cancel that because their constituents need to have wildfires, and these campfire Karens can't be bothered to do what's good for the rest of us because, damn it, they're going to have their fires.
Fire.
Campfire Karens, Matt. Lovely.
That's the best line of the day. Appreciate you listening. 844-967-2789. He dropped the mic and left.
Yeah, that was it, man.
Boom,
Campfire
I got him.
Karens. Now, Crudy, I know you got like a little camp spot. You're going to be able to go visit that place and not have a campfire for the next month or so until, we get out of this dry spell?
Well, first and foremost, they've got to move our camper to the campsite.
To the site? Okay.
We're like at the bottom of the hill and our campsite's at the top of the hill and we can see our camper. And I figured out this weekend, my wife's got most of the garage filled with camping stuff. Since we're a new camping family, apparently we need to acquire stuff for the camper.
Well, you have
and store it in the garage, all stacked to the ceiling. So, if I wanted to get like the hedge clippers out, I would just do the math and go to the hardware store and buy another pair because it's easier than cleaning out the whole garage just to get to the hedge clippers. Yeah, apparently my wife is very interested. This has been her project, and I don't mean to diminish my role, as supportive spouse, but she's our little campfire Karen. She'll be the one pushing. She wants to get her camper, and I'm allowed to stay there occasionally, her camper on her campsite, because that bad boy opens up like next weekend.
Right. And it's going to be
camping
dry
season,
as
baby.
hell out, man. And you're
No,
not
we got rain
supposed to
coming.
have campfires. We had a little rain today, but it's going to take a lot.
Well, it's turned beautiful here on the west side. The sun's shining now. The wind's blowing. It's drying out. But I want the freedom of fires. And no tyrannical governor is going to tell me I can't burn stuff in my backyard. I'll burn the Constitution if I have to, Tony. Come back with us. More Devil's Advocates. You can be a part of this big program. You can join us. Dial us right now, 844-967-2789. What time do the Cubs play the Brewers?
That's a 6:40 first pitch.
6:40 first pitch. You're not going to miss any of the fine. I take it back. Native Roots Radio launches this afternoon at 6 o'clock live. They're doing it live each and every weeknight right here on Devil Radio. So you're going to have to listen to like 40 minutes. And then you can catch a little baseball. And then Championship Monday. We'll be right back.
They taste like burning.
Holy mackerel, folks. Let's get to work.
Hi, this is Brad from Zero Res. If you need someone to help with your carpet cleaning, business or residence, please give us a call. We have the best system available and an amazing team of friendly technicians. Call us at 848-9000 or schedule online at zeroresmadison.com.
We're 1 year into the COVID pandemic, and it's clear that we can't afford more obstruction from Republicans like Senator Ron Johnson. He's twice voted against COVID relief bills that would have helped struggling Wisconsin families. We can and we must provide people the relief they need to take care of their families. Together, we can create a better future. Text ACT to 668-366 to join Move On. Message and data rates may apply. MoveOn.org. Political action paid for and is responsible for the content of this advertising. Poll.moveon.org. Not authorized by any candidate or candidates committee.
Wisconsin is stimulated. More than $5 billion in COVID-19 aid. That's more than $3,000 in the bank account of the average Wisconsin household right now for the WBA. Let Devil Radio help your company benefit from the expected leap in consumer spending. Advertise here and reach our engaged local and statewide audiences while getting the exceptional value of our pandemic ad pricing. Ending soon. Go online at devilradio927.com today to get started.
Oh, crap.
When you're trying to stay safe, you want the best protection possible. And when it comes to PPE, that means Lutema. Made in the USA with the highest quality materials, Lutema has mask sizes for all. Lutema masks pass ASTM Level 3 and NIOSH efficiency standards and come in a wide variety of colors and types, including M95i. Get your American-made face mask at Lutema.com. That's Lutema.com. And get 40% off your first purchase single item with promo code RADIO at Lutema.com.
Stream Progressive News and Talk 24/7, as well as download exclusive podcasts and interviews at devilradio927.com. That's devilradio927.com. I am once again asking you to listen to Devil Radio 92.7 FM. I believe they have the moral fiber to create a progressive movement in Wisconsin and indeed in America.
The Devil's Advocates, because it's always 420 somewhere.
And we are back from the 420 break. Thank you so much for listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show. Be a part of this historic presentation. Call us toll-free 844-967-2789.
Well, let's not be hyperbolic about it.
Yeah, never, not us.
I mean, I would settle for greatest radio show ever. Let's just leave it at that.
Well, you actually did some raking this weekend, Curdy. That's quite the story, man. I mean, history will note. Never forget.
Mike Crude, man of action.
And by raking leaves, you did your part to prevent forest fires.
Yes.
Congratulations on that. Double trouble.
Yeah.
I think we should go out and rake our forest this weekend. I got a big mulberry bush in the backyard. Got to rake under that bad boy. Didn't do that yet. Don't want to see that thing go up in flames this weekend, right, Tony? You know, I might have my campfire a little too close to it. Dominic, not precisely a lawsuit, but Donald Trump and his supporters, well, they're trying to collect some court fees. And there are some other cities in the great state of Wisconsin that are kind of jumping on saying, oh yeah, Donald Trump and his campaign, they owe us money too.
Yeah, good luck with that.
Riley Betterkind reports at the Wisconsin State Journal, the cities of Green Bay, Kenosha, and Racine are asking a federal judge to make former President Donald Trump pay thousands of dollars in legal fees in a case he brought challenging Wisconsin's presidential election results just days after Governor Tony Evers made a similar request. The three cities want Trump to pay a total of $42,500 in attorney fees for bringing a lawsuit the cities view as meritless, and that was dismissed. So apparently the judiciary also sees the suit as meritless. Here's a quote. The objective, bad faith of plaintiff's counsel in filing and litigating this action is evidenced by the scope of relief sought and the relentless pursuit of it all the way to the United States Supreme Court. They didn't just file and let it lie. They took it to the highest court in the land well after the election results in Wisconsin had been determined and certified, wrote Daniel Lenz, attorney for the cities. In essence, plaintiff's counsel sought to disenfranchise every Wisconsin voter and would have done so except for one vote on the Wisconsin Supreme Court.
And would have done so with the support of a lot of Republicans in this state of Wisconsin.
Well, at least 15 seditious ones. They wrote a letter, and a couple of them got behind the lawsuits. In March, the U.S. Supreme Court declined to take up the lawsuit, which Trump filed after the election in federal court in Wisconsin, challenging his loss in the state. Federal Judge Brett Ludwig threw out the lawsuit in December, calling the case extraordinary. If the relief that's been requested were granted, this would be the most remarkable proceedings and probably the most remarkable ruling in the history of this court or the federal judiciary, Ludwig said. President Joe Biden won Wisconsin by more than 20,000 votes, a result that a partial recount affirmed. The suit alleged elections officials failed to abide by the rules for the election set forth by the legislature and therefore likely tainted more than 50,000 ballots, and asked the court to allow Republican-controlled legislature to determine how to award Wisconsin's 10 electoral votes. They actually assigned electors, fraudulent electors that signed paperwork and said, we're the real electors. They're also being sued. But back to the article. Trump's lawsuit challenged cities' use of absentee ballot drop boxes and for accepting grant money from Mark Zuckerberg, funded Center for Tech and Civic Life, a conservative group that had previously filed a lawsuit challenging the use of the grant money, but a federal judge dismissed that case as well, right?
Yes.
That had already been litigated. In the case brought by Trump, Evers last week also asked the former president to pay $144,000 in legal fees. Well, you better get in line, Tony, because apparently, what is it? Win Red already had to refund $122 million that Trump fundraised, claiming he needed the money for legal fees. And if you'd only give him a one-time recurring donation that you had to twice opt out of, he'd be properly funded for the legal battles that would ensue. Well,
one-time recurring, dude. That's fantastic. And Trump, I mean, what? So he should have plenty of money, right? He raised almost $250 million and spent maybe $10 million on legal fees. And of course, he had to apparently refund some, but there still should be some money there to reimburse cities in the state of Wisconsin for having to defend fraudulent lawsuits thrown out by almost every single judge who heard the evidence or lack thereof.
What about the outstanding tabs for some of the rallies he had?
Yeah, I think those are still outstanding. Yeah, and Green Bay might be one of them.
I think
Eau
Claire was looking for some cash from the Trump campaign. Well, pretty much anywhere he went, the cops worked overtime, and then Trump stiffed him because he backs the blue. 844-967-2789. What do you think about this little action? Worth the effort, Dom?
Well, it's certainly worth the effort. I mean, $43,000 in the scope of
across 3 communities,
right? In big cities' budgets, but it sends a message, and I think absolutely anybody, any municipality, that had to go out and defend these things against straight up lies. I mean, these were lies. These were falsehoods, and they were supported and put upon us by many of the Republicans. And either they know better and are lying to us, or they're ignorant of the facts and haven't bothered to do any of the research and just believe their cult leader. But none of those situations bode well for having any sort of trust with the Republicans in the state of Wisconsin. Why would you want to disenfranchise every single voter in the state of Wisconsin? And you're going to give it up to a fraudulent slate of electors? Are you freaking? I mean, the whole thing was just a disaster, and I hope as it unwinds, it hits their pocketbooks very hard.
More defamation suits out there, right? At least threatened by Dominion against a Michigan state lawmaker that had raised over $1 million telling that big lie. Come back, nothing but truth here. Devil's advocates, keep it locked. Dial us up, 844-967-2789.
Where's the money, man? Where's my money? Hope you don't mind if I pay you in cash. I don't like Big Brother getting into my business, you dig?
Friends don't let friends spread fake news. Make sure to follow Devil Radio on Facebook and Twitter and stay up to date with the most important stories of the day.
Hey folks, Stephanie Miller here. As an enlightened progressive, you know how important it is to do business in accordance with your politics. That's why Solidarity Realty is my favorite real estate firm in Madison. Solidarity Realty is a local independent realty company that lives their values. They provide outstanding expertise and protect your best interests while building community and promoting sustainability and diversity. Viva la resistance! Find them today at solidarityrealty.com. And don't forget, tell them Stephanie Miller sent you.
Hey, Dom, is your carpeting starting to have a little bit of a funk to it?
That's a bit of a personal question, Crudy.
No, I know this is really busy time for one of our sponsors, Zero Res of Madison. People want a cleaner, healthier home.
You mean spending the entire quarantine locked in with bacteria and allergens isn't healthy? Who knew?
You want to get it professionally cleaned well before it gets funky. Even if you vacuum frequently,
I vacuum a lot.
You still need to get it professionally cleaned. Schedule your carpet cleaning online at zeroresmadison.com. Tell them the Devil's Advocates.
Minneapolis trial. I'm Tim McGuire with an AP News Minute. The emergency physician who treated George Floyd and declared him dead, Dr. Bradford Langenfeld, says he died from a lack of oxygen to the brain, likely caused by then-Officer Dere Chauvin's knee on the back of his neck. In cross-examination, Chauvin's attorney, Eric Nelson, asked the doctor if there are other conditions that could cause hypoxia.
There are many things that cause hypoxia that would still be considered asphyxiation. Agreed?
Correct.
Drug use. Certain drugs can cause hypoxia. Agreed? Yes. Specifically fentanyl?
That's correct.
Minneapolis Police Chief Madaria Arredondo says every Minneapolis police officer is scrutinized on his or her use of force.
While it is absolutely imperative that our officers go home at the end of their shift, we want to make sure and ensure that our community members go home too. And so sanctity of life is absolutely vital, that is the pillar for our use of force.
I'm Tim McGuire.
Let me get right back to you. Sandra, those banners go out tonight. Can you pack them?
Indeed knows unexpected growth can stretch your business thin.
On machine 4?
Like at Monica's print shop. To fulfill orders on time, she needs to get started hiring right away.
I need Indeed.
Indeed you do. And the moment you sponsor a job on Indeed, you get a short list of quality candidates from our resume database. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get a $75 credit for your first sponsored job post. Terms and conditions apply.
Are you one of the millions of Americans who experience occasional bloating, gas, or abdominal discomfort? Join the Align Healthy Gut Team Up and see how healthy your gut can feel. Align contains a quality probiotic strain developed by gastroenterologists. It adds more good bacteria to your gut to naturally help soothe your occasional digestive upsets with continued daily usage. This is the time to join the Align Healthy Gut Team Up from the #1 doctor-recommended probiotic brand. Sign up at alignprobiotics.com.
For Devil Radio, 92.7 FM and WTTN 1580 AM. I'm Luke Mathers with your headlines for Monday, April 5th. As of this weekend, Wisconsin is reporting 20% of the state's population is fully vaccinated against COVID-19. That is nearly 1.2 million Wisconsin residents. More than 3 million doses of the coronavirus vaccine have been administered in Wisconsin as of Sunday, with 63.3% of Wisconsinites ages 65 and up now fully vaccinated. The 7-day rolling average for new COVID-19 cases in Wisconsin was 589 daily cases yesterday. 1 week ago, the average was 473 daily cases. Mostly cloudy skies in the forecast today with a chance for a scattered shower possible, high today of 72 degrees. Possible thunderstorms expected to develop overnight with a chance of rain at 40% and an overnight low of 57 degrees. You're listening to Devil Radio 92.7 FM and WTTN 1580 AM.
The Devil's Advocates. Rock and roll political commentary in a top 40 world.
Welcome back to the Devil's Advocates radio show. Dominic, I just set my alarm for tomorrow morning, 5:15 a.m.
Ooh, I'll be home by then.
I will be Matt Flynn's worst nightmare because I'll be his producer the next 2 days. I'm getting up early. Someone's got to do some work around this joint. Apparently, young Luke's going to a wedding or something. Like his brother gets married, you know? He's got more than one brother. You could skip the wedding.
Oh, Luke and Evan did a great job last week replacing Fancy Brian. Takes two of them to do that in more ways than one. Always great to have Fancy back on the board.
Well, it is. Brian, do you want to get up at 5:15 tomorrow and produce Matt?
I would, but I'd have to get up at 3:15 so I can get here to go and produce him.
I prefer that option. I'm still down for that. No, so get up early with Matt Flynn direct and Crudy produce, and I'm sure I'll hardly screw it up at all.
Hardly at all.
And tomorrow, or no, tonight at 6 o'clock, as mentioned, the Native Roots Radio rolling out the new product. Robert Pilot and his wife Wendy met them last week on the big show. Now they're not just a weekend fling, they're your every weeknight 6 o'clock show. And we've got the Busted Pencils tomorrow night with Dr. Tim Slecker and Johnny Lupinati. And then Wednesday night, we're rolling out another new podcast, a live to radio podcast. They were doing a podcast. They're now doing a radio show. Our pal, Kirk Bangstead from Minocqua Brewing Company.
Oh, yeah. Nice.
And Kristen Bry and Pat Kreitlow. So the inaugural Up North podcast rolls out Wednesday night at 7 p.m.
Awesome.
So it's going to be a big week round here. I'm very excited about all the fine undertakings that we're going to have. And you know what else is very exciting, Dom?
What's that?
We're all eligible to get vaccinated. We're all going to get laid.
Hey, all right. I can't wait. I get my second shot on Wednesday, actually.
That is very exciting news.
Yeah, I'm stoked.
16 and over. If you are 16 or over, and if you're not, I doubt you're listening to the show, but if you're 16 or over, you're now eligible for a vaccination. And my 16-year-old, who's now working at the movie theater and the pizza joint, he's been wearing his mask. He's the best one in the family at doing the right thing. And he's the one that most wants his vaccine because he wants to get back to normal, wants to see his girlfriend again. I think they've seen each other about once a month here through the pandemic, like they got to walk on cross the street sidewalks kind of deal. They barely get to even be in each other's presence. So I know he wants his vaccine. There haven't been any available vaccines for his age group because he's under the 18 threshold, except in Milwaukee. I'm like, hey, if we got to do a road trip, tell them to get in. We'll go to Milwaukee. We'll crash down on Brady Street and we'll come do a show with you one day.
There you go, man. Make it happen.
So I'm excited about that. I'm excited that 20% of all Wisconsinites are now fully vaccinated. And I'm excited. My wife finally put me in for the vaccine shot, registered me with the healthcare provider we have, and also DHS, because I'm busy. I wasn't going to get around to it. So it would have been a couple more weeks before I even signed up. I could be vaccinated like you and super cool by then.
Yeah, get it done. Great opportunity here, everyone. 16 and up, eligible. Make it happen. Get vaccinated. Let's get back to some semblance of normalcy, but not too normal. We always got to push back on bad governance.
Well, buddy, you got a birthday coming like 2 months to 50. And I'm looking forward to one hell of a blowout shindig. I want to be there. I want to celebrate with you. It's sort of a low-key affair for my 50th last June, but I will celebrate doubly at your party as long as we can have it publicly, perhaps in an outdoor space, and maybe invite some of our friends down.
Oh, we got some catching up to do, that's for sure.
We do, sir. Well, I suspect you've done a fair amount of partying during the pandemic.
Yeah.
Salvia party of one.
Yeah,
Salvia.
right. It's just not the same without a bunch of people hanging out, having fun, talking trash. And
you at the back bar with the scotch and a good book. 844-967-2789. You're never alone when you call the Devil's Advocates radio show. Welcome back, Dick from Madison. You're next.
Hey, Dick.
Happy post-Easter, guys. I know I'm not the first one to thought of this, but I was close moving the All-Star game. I told Sue the minute I heard about him talking about it last Wednesday, move it to Milwaukee. I mentioned it to Matt this morning. And here's another reason why I told him, because of Hank Aaron, to honor him. When you talk baseball, can I throw something by you about him that's just amazing that I read?
Sure,
Do you consider 3,000 hits a benchmark in baseball? 3,000 hits. It's huge, right?
Sure, unless you're Bob Uecker or Mendoza. Yeah, that's a big number.
But if you take all his home runs away, he still has over 3,000 hits.
Wow. That is a big number.
Yeah. That is huge. But it would kind of offset the loss of the convention last year. And I know that Mayor Barrett's after it.
Yeah, but those are unrelated events. And unfortunately, Major League Baseball said effectively they're not going to move the All-Star game to anywhere where they've got voter suppressive efforts going on. Well, the Wisconsin Republicans are going to wreck that one for us, Dick. They're always trying to pass voter suppressive efforts. Fancy Brian said maybe at the White Sox new stadium, because Illinois is like one of 3 states that don't have new voter suppression laws coming down the pike right now.
Yeah, the White Sox park is not necessarily new, but it's updated for sure, and it's really nice. It's a nice park. They have a lot of they have everything you would want there for an All-Star game, and plus you'd be serving the south side of Chicago. I
was going to say everything you would want, except that it's on the south side of Chicago, Dick.
It's a great place to go see a game, man.
I've driven past.
Old Kaminsky was cool. It really was. And I know Cubs fans just don't even relate to the White Sox too much, but my grandfather was a big White Sox fan. He was an oddity.
Yes, he was.
The one thing about the Sox park that's weird is that you have this iconic, wonderful Chicago skyline, and it faces away from it. It looks like an abandoned building. That's kind of it.
I had a friend that lived in Wrigleyville for a while. Well, not you, a differing friend. Dating sort of friend, like college, dated the girl and said, hey, let's try to make this work past college, but anywhere but Chicago. And she immediately moved to Wrigleyville, and that pretty much ended our post-college dating time. Not a fan of Chicago, I got to tell you.
Wow, Wrigleyville is like the nonstop party for the entire
what is
summer.
Hang on, but what is it about? I mean, Chicago, is it the people? I mean, is it the city? Is it the lifestyle? What is it about Chicago that you have to take such umbrage with?
The high density of Bears fans. That's really the problem.
Bears
mouth
fans?
breathing, the knuckle dragging, and the Bears fans. It's all too much for me. No, we went down to Chicago last fall, I think, had a nice time. Had a stay at some resort out there in the golf course, so we could socially distance. But no, Chicago, no big issues with Chicago anymore. But, you know, I was a sports guy at the time, man. I wasn't going to turn on my hometown teams. You know,
there were
because
plenty of really good Green Bay Packers bars in Chicago.
yeah, but that's not how they hire you into broadcast. They don't hire you in Chicago to go cover the Packers typically. And, you know, quite frankly, coming from a small market, I wasn't ready for America's number 3 media market.
Yes,
I could have been the intern to the intern, you know, but I was more destined for like Boise. I could have been the voice of
How
Boise,
about now,
Idaho.
man? You ready? Are you ready for Chicago now? Take the political ball game on the road. Come on, Chicago. Are they ready for the devil's advocates, Crudy?
Well, they have legalized marijuana, so that's a good first step. You know, it's election day tomorrow in the state of Wisconsin. I don't think we've mentioned it on today's show. It's election eve. You're worried about deep dish pizza
already, so it's kind of
Mitchell Trubisky, and you aren't even acknowledging what's going on in your own backyard, my man.
Hey, most people I know already voted absentee. I mean, who's going to take the risk to go and, you know, do it in person unless you're a true diehard? Oh, that's right. Crudy will.
I did it last year in person. No, that's not true. I did the pandemic primary in April of last year, you know, when Robin Voss told us it's completely safe to go out there. I had already voted, but I went to the polling station in Middleton that morning where I live as the first of 3 that I covered. And when I went to Middleton, everyone was wearing masks and a lot of people were pissed that their absentee ballots had not been acknowledged as received on time. Remember that? The Supreme Court ruling that said, you know, those absentee ballots that mailed back and were received after Election Day would be thrown out. So people felt like they were forced to go out there and vote in a pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
And in Middleton, they were kind of angry, you know, disgruntled about it. At least all those. And I talked to a handful of people in Middleton. And when I went to Milwaukee, people were more patient. And, you know, they were waiting in line. Only 5 voting stations in the entire city opened that day. But the one I was at, North Division High School, I believe, well-staffed. It was going really quick. I felt like it was a safe environment, you know, relatively speaking. I was outside the entire time and I kept my mask on. And most of the voters that day in Milwaukee, they kept their masks on. But then I stopped down to Waukesha and nobody was wearing a mask. Barely. You know, they'd like wear a mask, like they'd like cover their face with their t-shirt as they were forced to do so as they were walking in the door. But I would guess the vast majority of voters in Waukesha last April did not show up wearing a mask. They might have been forced to wear one briefly when they voted, but it was a differing sort of experience.
When I was in Orlando, people would walk around because you could have your mask down if you were actively eating or drinking.
Right.
So these idiots would walk around with an empty coffee cup so they wouldn't have to have their mask up. But I'm like, you just got rid of one of your arms because you're stupid.
Freedom.
Oh, you totally worked around that one. Wow.
Yeah,
Did you see
play the system?
The guy that went to Disney World and refused to get his temperature checked or wear a mask.
His temperature check, like the temperature check.
And when he complained, they came over and said, well, then you're not allowed in our park. I spent $15,000. I shouldn't have to get my temperature checked for $15,000. And they arrested his ass anyways. I guess you're out the 15 G's, buddy.
By the way, they tell you, Amy got repeated emails that said, hey, you may want to consider this. You have to have a mask on if you come in. They told you clearly over and over again. And they said, please reconsider rebooking if you can't follow these protocols. Right. They told you over and over again, if you're going to have to do this, if you want to come in the park. It's not like you didn't know.
You know, for the pair of you Fancy Brian, you Salvia, you both came back from DeSantis's COVID magical hotspot in the last week, and you're worried about in-person voting? Come on, man.
What are you talking about, man? St. Augustine, wasn't the crap show like down at Miami, and it wasn't, you know, it was everything was outdoors and people were still masked up. So no, I mean, but people got to do what they got to do. Certainly it's a better circumstance now than it was last April during the pandemic. So we got people that are actually getting vaccinated. We have people that are more accustomed and used to the protocols of having to mask up in order to do these things. So no, I mean, I would agree it's certainly safer now. But Florida, wow. Brian, I'm not sure what your experience was, but generally where I was, people were masked up and behaving themselves.
Disney was amazing. They did a really good job of it. And I got to tell you, we go down to Florida and then the Matt Gaetz news breaks. So
yeah. He's not resigning, by the way.
You broke Florida. How is that possible? Between the two of you, you broke Florida. Come back with us. One last segment of the Devil's Advocates today. Your Championship Monday grievances are welcome here at 844-967-2789. Brewers beat the Cubbies and Gonzaga Zags beat the Baylor Bears. I've been so right lately. I'm sure that's all going to come to pass.
Hey, is this heaven? No. It's Iowa.
Don't worry, nobody's listening anyway.
Friends, this is Congresswoman Gwen Moore. On Tuesday, April 6th, we have a critical election for state superintendent of schools. Unfortunately, one of the candidates, Deb Kerr, is the wrong choice. On her watch, Black and brown kids were suspended 3 times more than white kids. Deb Kerr even had to delete her Twitter account because of a racist tweet. The good news is that there's a better choice. Dr. Jill Underly for State Superintendent of Schools. Jill Underly has the right experience and the right values to ensure every child has equal opportunity. She will fight for all our kids. Jill Underly is endorsed by the Democratic Party, and she has my vote. I hope Jill Underly has your vote too. We need Jill Underly to lift our kids up.
Paid for by Underleaf for Wisconsin.
Madison businesses, stop flushing money away. If you've got old water wasting toilets in your business, Madison Water Utility will give you $100 bill credits to replace them. Madison businesses can get up to 20 bill credits per year. Save water and money by upgrading to an EPA WaterSense toilet. Madison's Water Utility Toilet Rebate Program bill credits are first come, first served until funding runs out. Find out more at madisonwater.org. Madison Water Utility customers only.
The people voted to give Democrats a mandate for bold action. From COVID relief to climate change and racial injustice, the problems we're facing are large, and we need bold solutions. We can't afford more obstruction from Senator Ron Johnson and the Republicans. Text ACT to 668-366 to join Move On. Message and data rates may apply. MoveOn.org political action paid for and is responsible for the content of this advertising. Poll.moveon.org, not authorized by any candidate or candidates committee.
Make sure you listen to Devil Radio 92.7. If you do, you go to heaven.
The big and tall of political talk. Dom and Krutz on The Devil's Advocates.
And we are back. Thank you for listening to the Devil's Advocates radio show. Last segment of the day. If you got something to say, pick up the phone, hit us up right now, toll free at 844-967-2789.
Dominic, I'm going to the lines. Getting ready for Matt Flynn's show tomorrow morning. I'll be guest producing. It'll be spectacular, I suspect. I don't know when I'm going to get my voting in. I wish I'd have gone and early voted now. That's okay. After Matt show, I'll have to go home and sneak a nap in probably. I'm not used to getting up at 5:15. That seems quite early.
Just stay up all night. You'll be fine.
844-967-2789. Joe from Madison, welcome back. What do you got?
Hey, Joe.
I am calling about the notion of having the All-Star game in Milwaukee. And you had mentioned, and I hadn't thought about this, that they don't want to bring the game to another state where voter suppression tactics are being employed. Man, that just hit me like a baseball bat up the head. I mean, it would be, given that the man started and ended his career in Milwaukee, there's no better place to honor him. And it would be so tragic and sick and ironic if this is the reason why Hank Aaron isn't honored in Milwaukee for the All-Star game. And
well, we'll never know the reason, Joe, but when they decide not to come to Milwaukee, just blame Robin Voss.
God, could we offer them tickets for the All-Star game? Would they trade off for that? They seem to be, what would it take to get them to sit down? And they aren't spending a lot of time in the legislature anyway. Why not go to the ball game, right?
Well, here would be the problem, Joe. I'm not clear that under current mandates, if they'd be able to seat the whole stadium. I mean, they've been only bringing about 25% attendance, like 11,400 fans for the Brewers games. If you don't let them sit at opening day, what, a month from now, 2 months from now, you're going to pack a stadium? I'm not sure that would be the smartest decision-making, Joe, because a little bit of rain, you got the roof closed. Effectively, you've created an indoor venue for 44,000 fans.
Oh, this is a bitter blow. It should be, it should be in Milwaukee. It.
It should be. You're absolutely right,
Joe. I've completely given up on the city of Milwaukee after they Scrooged us on the DNC.
Well, let's plot and plan, you guys. See what we could do to influence this decision.
Milwaukee's already had an all-star game. They had their all-star game, and it's been a number of years now, but not County Stadium. I guess it was Miller Park, now American Family Field. They got the all-star game after they built the new stadium. And as much as I'd like to think the party's coming to our town, I don't think it will, Joe.
Well, we'll stay tuned, and thanks for bringing it to our attention as always.
Well, I will tell you this, Joe. If they host that game in Wilmington, Delaware, the fix is in.
Thank you. Thank you, Joe. Appreciate it.
Oh, I meant to ask Joe if she voted.
No, she's still on there. Joe, you still hang on. Joe, you there?
Joe, have you voted yet?
No, I'm going in person. I'm one of the crew that's going in person tomorrow. I shall walk my way over and do my voting. Wearing a mask, of course, but I feel safe enough doing that.
You know, I don't have the ability to watch the new Brewers. Apparently, my streaming service didn't hook up with Bally's or something. So I've been brewerless all weekend, except listening on my competitor's radio station, which galls me a little bit, Joe. And I thought to myself, my family, my kids, you know, the wife, they're all gone. I got a buddy that invites me over all the time for ball games. I always stiff him. Have stiffed him for like a year straight. Haven't been to his house in like 2 years, year and a half. And I thought, wow, what a wonderful weekend to go over and watch the Brewer game. And then I had to think twice, Joe. I decided I wasn't even comfortable going over to a small gathering watching a baseball game because I'm not vaccinated. No one's going to wear shots. And by the seventh inning, they're all going to be stretching out, trying to reach another beer out of the cooler. I just didn't feel like it was a safe environment.
Good decision. Good decision. Yeah, you need those shots, Crudy. You need to get yourself all into, as they say, fully baked. You need to be fully baked with the shots, okay?
Well, I'll use your vernacular. I like that. What are you doing, Dad? Oh, I'm going to get fully baked. Joe on the radio said to do so.
We encourage everyone to do so.
Be fully baked. Be like
you know, the ball game coming here. I mean, if as you say, Curdy, one of the limitations for Major League Baseball to go to a state that doesn't have any of these kinds of laws, or at least efforts.
Well, Florida it is.
There's not going to be a whole lot of places for them to go to. My understanding, like 43 states and like 300 bills. The good news is we have at least a Democratic governor here that will not sign any of those bills.
You know where that game's going to end up? Chicago's South Side or Washington, D.C.
What about Seattle?
What about Seattle?
Well, they're in Washington. They at least don't have voter suppression laws. I'd say it'd be awesome if they went to Toronto, but Toronto's playing their first 2 months in Florida because they don't trust us to have people going back and forth.
Toronto, right? You got 2-week quarantine laws in Canada right now.
Yeah, because they don't trust us. I wouldn't trust us either.
I don't trust us either.
Okay, I'm going to trust you boys to help me decide why I don't even want to go there, man. I feel like we've got an opportunity lost tomorrow with this election day. I feel like Jill Underly will be just fine. She'll win the election for state superintendent. But my qualm about tomorrow's big election day is the Senate special 13th and Melissa Winker. I mean, she is a fine candidate. I was quite impressed by her. I'll speak only for myself. She appeared on this program, and this will be a base turnout sort of election. And unfortunately, with the fact that you can't have one on and not invite them all, she only appeared one time. We didn't really talk about the 13th. But John Jagler, he was all over conservative talk radio. And Righty Whitey Talk Radio is encouraging people, get out and vote for Jagler. He's the only jaggy kind of choice that you could possibly vote for. But this was an opportunity. And if Melissa Winker, loses in a close race, it's going to be a bitter pill to swallow. I would encourage all our listeners, especially on the 1580 AM, if you can hear that sound, you're probably in the 13th. So consider going out, voting for Melissa Winker. It's a small turnout special election. Crazy stuff can happen. Want to thank our fine guest today. He was Brett Johnson from AM 950. Want to welcome Evan back. Missed you. Not as much as I missed Fancy Brian last week, but welcome back. And tune in tomorrow morning for Matt Flynn Direct. Crudy will be ham-handed on the production board. Stick around now. Earl Ingram. The Earl Ingram Show is next. Thanks for listening.
Sunny day, stands are full of fans. What does he have to say? I'm going out there for myself. But I get nowhere unless the team wins.
And they're the ones writing it off. Over the years, we have done our best to bring you the highest quality